Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Guy is the mediator, after all. Both he and Chloe looked at Leon in confusion. The mediator? Leon nodded. A mediator is a system that exists separately from heroes and demon lords. It is said that a mediator's goal is to prevent the destruction of the world and to be the spokesperson of its creator, Star King Veldanova. It's safe to assume that the reason he was fighting Krinoa in that other timeline was due to her threatening the very planet itself. Rimuru nodded. Ah, that's pretty similar to what Felix said. He just didn't put a name on it. Chloe nodded. Right, I don't blame Demon Lord Guy for what he did. In fact, he was being reasonable. Krinoa also doesn't blame him. Leon nodded. Right. But perhaps someone should explain this matter to Guy, to make sure that he doesn't intervene due to a potential threat? I can do so if you wish. Chloe shook her head. You don't need to, Leon. You have nothing to do with this, after all. It would be best if one of us did the explaining. Ouch, was Chloe trying to kill Leon with her words? Leon looked like he would pass out and die any moment now, which was weird since he was a spiritual life form. Maybe I can ask Felix to talk to Guy about it if he thinks we should. Felix knows Guy the best out of all of us. Chloe nodded. That's fine. That ended their discussion with Leon, who still looked like he wanted to die. Eventually, Leon recovered, though he still looked like he had sucked on a lemon. Rimuru. He looked at him in confusion. Yes, Leon? I heard that you had taken in some other world or children? Leon asked with a wince. Rimuru glared at him full force. I won't let you have them. Leon sighed. I do not wish to take them with me, I was simply interested in knowing how they are doing. He stared at Leon suspiciously but decided to answer him. It wouldn't hurt to do so, after all. They are doing well enough. He made sure not to mention that they had a possible way to send the children back to their original worlds, something he still needed to talk to them about. He had put it off long enough. He needed to talk to the kids about going back to their original worlds. With everything that had been going on recently, he hadn't had the chance to speak with them about that topic. If they wanted, they could permanently remain there. If not, maybe he could convince Felix to transport them back and forth. He may not show it, but he had a bit of a soft spot for kids, so Rimuru thought it was likely that he would help. He had a lot of work to get through, most importantly the meeting with the Council of the West to officially join the Council. Whatever Felix did quickly got the Council to play ball, now it would be far easier to gain the cooperation of humanity. He clenched his fist under the table. He was close, so close to achieving his dream. Just a little more work, and he could relax. Now that my meeting with Arcuaid is done, I could go see Sasha. I'll contact Dagrul through the Demon Lord's ring once Arcuaid has a contract ironed out. I began making my way to Sasha's lab. I had a few ideas I wanted her to start working on for the likely inevitable war with the Eastern Empire. Quality did trump quantity. Yes, if the Eastern Empire only sends some basic military force to my territory, then I can just have one of my subordinates deal with that, but if they send anyone truly powerful, then my subordinates may have their hands a bit full with that. In that case, I can always take action and wipe out the threat, but in case the Eastern Empire also has a plan for me and I get held up, then it will be up to my army to deal with the Eastern Empire's main forces. So, anything I can do to up their chances, I'll do. In the end, I didn't have enough information on the Eastern Empire, so I needed to plan for as many possibilities as possible, and my meeting with Sasha was just part of that. I nodded to the bowing maids I passed by. I sensed that they had each gotten a little stronger. It's good that Raiden hasn't been slacking on her duties as my head maid. Having another competent force under me can only be more helpful with the incoming war on the horizon. My battle maids will likely be participating in this war if things go my way. The Eastern Empire has no idea what they have coming. It seems that in order to properly connect to Hinata and assist her with her revolution, I will need to form a soul corridor between her and you, Master. There already exists a soul connection between you two due to the bond you have formed, but that connection is not sufficient enough. I see, Then do what you need to do. I don't mind having a soul corridor with Hinata. Very well then. It didn't take me long to reach Sasha's laboratory. I knocked on the door, and a moment later, I heard something clang against the ground. "See, come in," Sasha yelled. I opened the door and saw Sasha picking up a metal vase. "Ah. Lord Felix, welcome." "Sorry, it's a bit messy," Sasha said as she nervously rubbed the back of her head. "It's fine. This is your lab to make use of. I don't mind a mess." My gaze wandered to the back of the lab, where I saw the golem that Sasha had been working on. There had been some changes in the design, but it was still pretty easy to see that it was modeled after Cell from Dragon Ball Z. I do wonder what she will be able to do with this golem. The art of creating golems is hilariously underdeveloped in this world. People only use the basics for construction from time to time, and the few that used golems for combat didn't really develop the art all that much. They just made use of what has been used in the past. Alice seems to be specializing in golem creation. Perhaps she'll be able to bring some much-needed advancement to the field once she gets older. However, if she continues with the same personality, maybe some massive teddy bear murder robots are bound to terrorize her enemies in the future. Her poor enemies are bound to get destroyed by cute yet deadly golems. I looked around the lab. There were random metal arms placed on desks, potions lying around, and magic stones on the floor. She seriously wasn't joking when she called this room a mess. Sasha straightened out her lab coat as she smiled at me. "I was just planning to request a meeting with you, Lord Felix, so this is quite convenient." I raised a brow. "Is that so? Then we can talk about what you want to do after. I have something important I want you to begin working on." "Ooh, an assignment, huh? I'll admit it's taken you a lot longer than I thought for you to actually tell me to work on something." I shrugged my shoulders. What can I say? I know that restricting your creative freedom will only hurt me in the long run. I'm glad then. I've had a lot of fun working here so far. So many interesting magics I've been learning about from the library. Ah, that's right. I did create a magic library filled with the super basics, didn't I? It was meant primarily for military use. It was basically just a large building filled with bookshelves and books. It allowed those in the military to experiment with different schools of magic, finding whatever one they were good at and then exchanging for higher tier knowledge from the reward center with points. Sasha then straightened her back. "So, what did you want me to begin working on?" "There are a few things. Be aware that I'm not an inventor like you, so I'm not sure if these ideas of mine are possible. So if you can't do it, that's fine. They are more than possible. In fact, I could quickly create a blueprint for all of your ideas if you wish, Master. I'll let Sasha attempt to make something. If she can't, then I'll give her the blueprints. Who knows? She might surprise us with something we might never have tried." "Very well. I didn't want to limit the creative potential of my subordinates by limiting them. Right now, we should still have some time until the Eastern Empire's invasion. If Sasha can't come up with something functional in time, then I can just give her a blueprint for mass production. If she can make something, then good for her. Her knowledge will have expanded, which will surely be of use later on. I will try my best to meet your expectations, Lord Felix." I nodded. "First, I want you to begin working on magic shields that can block both physical and magical attacks." Sasha looked thoughtful. "Perhaps I can create a device that gathers the magicules in the air, and then have a rune inscribed onto the device to form the barrier itself. That should be doable. I just need to come up with a design that works." "That's great. That would be useful for defending my troops," I mumbled. "Then I want you to begin designing some heavy artillery that makes use of magicules, things like mortars, bombs, and the like." This world was hilariously primitive when it came to war, though I guess that's understandable. This is a world of swords and magic. Why make a nuke when you can have the equivalent in a magic spell? But with weapons, anyone can use them. You don't need a certain level of magic mastery. You just need to know how to reload and press a trigger. I can begin working on that as well." Sasha mumbled as she scribbled things down on a piece of paper. "Good, now this one may be a bit harder for you to come up with since it isn't quite your area of expertise, but I wanted to see what you thought of it. Is it possible for you to create something that someone can seal an attack in? For example, a device that has a sealed magic spell in it, so once the seal is removed, the spell is activated." This was something that, in practice, seemed simple, but it really wasn't. Sasha would have to come up with a device that could seal a spell, which meant sealing the magicules, the magic power, and even the spell structure would need to be maintained in the seal. Something like that wasn't easy. And the stronger the spell sealed, the more difficult it was to seal. I imagined that sealing a spell as powerful as gravity collapse would be incredibly difficult, if not nigh impossible, for Sasha to seal. Still, even lower-level spells like a nuclear cannon could be helpful. Sasha looked thoughtful. I'm not sure if I could come up with something that can do that. Something like that would involve multiple schools of magic like enchantment, runes, sealing, and some others. I can make an attempt, but I won't promise you results on that. I nodded. That's fine. I just want to see what you come up with. In the worst case, I can do something like that myself with Othinus's help. Indeed, it should be possible for us to come up with something that can do what you have in mind, Master. Excellent. That was all I wanted you to begin working on for now. Now, what did you want to talk about? Sasha nervously shifted. Before that, may I ask why you need all of these items? They are all weapons for war. Do you plan to wage war sometime soon? Sasha asked curiously. I could tell that she wouldn't disapprove if she heard me say that I planned to invade a foreign nation. She was simply curious. I suppose that was just the culture of this world. War was a simple fact of life that people learned to live with. I shook my head. I don't plan to wage war, but I've learned from a reliable source that the Eastern Empire may invade us in the future, so I am making preparations for that situation. Sasha's eyes widened. The Eastern Empire? Well, that aligns with what I want to speak to you about then. So you know how I am one of the students of Gadra, right? I nodded. Right, the court mage of the Eastern Empire. Sasha nodded. That's correct. He and I were pretty close back when he was teaching me, same with Adelman. Teacher and Adelman were very close. Once Adelman died, Teacher was very, very angry. He thought that Adelman was set up, and so he wanted revenge on the Western Holy Church for what they did to his friend. I nodded. Sounds reasonable enough. He told me before he left that his main reason for joining the Eastern Empire was because they would help him with his goal to destroy the 7 luminaries who had sent Adelman to his death. Said Sasha. The 7 luminaries, huh? Well, they're already dead. Luminous had said she killed them for what they tried to pull on Hinata. She does not take betrayal lightly. Sasha nodded. I was informed of that. So since Teacher's primary reason for joining the Eastern Empire is null, then perhaps if I contacted him, telling him of Adelman's survival, he may betray the Eastern Empire. He should have quite a lot of information on how the Eastern Empire functions and its inner workings. He could assist if the Eastern Empire does invade these lands. Sasha does make a good point. Gadra should know the inner workings of the military of the Eastern Empire and some other secrets. Honestly, knowledge about the military alone would be useful. That sounds fine to me. How will you be getting in contact with Gadra, though? I imagine sending a message to the Eastern Empire can be a bit difficult. Sasha nodded. You don't need to worry about that. Teacher left me a way to contact him if I needed to. The only issue is that it takes some time. I nodded. That's fine then. Let me know how that goes. Sasha nodded. I will. With that done, I left Sasha alone. Maybe I should take Lalatina on that date now. I have some free time now, after all. Sometimes, when you aren't focused on sex with your partner, it is essential to any relationship, even if the relationship between Lalatina and I isn't exactly normal. Deep inside her I did think that Lalatina craved some sort of connection with me. She had satisfied that craving with our current relationship dynamic, but it wouldn't hurt anything if she and I did some normal couple stuff. Let's go, Master. Lalatina said excitedly. I had asked Lalatina if she wanted to go out after she finished telling some of her elite subordinates to begin infiltrating the Eastern Empire. She eagerly agreed, even though she had only just finished ordering all of her subordinates around. Sure, do you know where you want to go? Lalatina looked thoughtful for a moment before a somewhat malign smirk appeared on her face. I do. What about the Kingdom of Raja? I wonder how they are doing now that I am not playing my games there anymore. She said as she began to twirl her hair playfully. That's right, Lalatina used to have some schemes in place involving the Kingdom of Raja. Queen Toa was originally going to be her vessel before Rimuru and Diablo interfered with her plan, though Lalatina said that she would have let Toa go anyway for being amusing. That sounds good to me. I heard they have grown quite a bit due to their alliance with Tempest, so there should be some new stores popping up. Lalatina clapped her hands once. Excellent. How should we get to Raja now? I could teleport us, or we could fly, but for a date, it should be romantic, right? Hey, I know just what to do. We won't be teleporting Lalatina. We're gonna be flying. I told her with a mischievous smile. Lalatina tilted her head before nodding, spreading her multiple pairs of wings out behind her. Each demon had different wings. In my case, I had one pair of black wings that extended out behind me. The wings had some holes, giving off the feel that they were corrupted, which suited me just fine. Lalatina had multiple bat-like pairs of wings that could separate from her body and be used to attack others. No, we won't be flying ourselves. Come, follow me. I added with a playful wink. Lalatina nodded as her wings disappeared. Holding out my hand for her, I saw the gears in her mind turn before a giddy smile appeared on her face. With a delighted jump, she quickly latched onto my hand, leaning into my body for support. Hee hee. She giggled with a blush on her face. Who knew that Lalatina could be so cute? We made our way through my palace and towards the stables where some Pegasus were stored. Azeroth didn't breed any Pegasus, but RQA had traded for some from Dwargon some time back for military use, though I didn't actually plan to use a Pegasus. This was just a convenient spot to take off from. As Lalatina and I approached the stable, an armored figure approached us. He saluted me. Your Majesty. He then turned to Lalatina. Lady Lalatina. She had a neutral expression on her face even as our hands were joined. At ease, I just need to use the space to take off. The soldier nodded. As you wish, Lord Felix. And then he backed off after ordering some of his men, who were looking at me in awe, away. Lalatina looked at me with a mix of curiosity and anticipation. As if she had full faith that I would do what I was attempting perfectly. This girl had way too much faith in me, though in this case, she wasn't wrong. I could feel a smile grow on my face as I used Brahma, Lord of Creation, to create a magical flying carpet. The carpet unfurled before me, its fabric shimmering with hues of deep purple and royal blue, adorned with intricate golden patterns that seemed to dance in the light. The edges were lined with elegant, golden fringes that swayed gently as the carpet hovered in the air. Despite its inanimate nature, the carpet exuded an aura of friendliness and adventure, as if it were eager to embark on the next journey. Brahma could really do some pretty neat stuff. How wonderful! I muttered. I had recreated the flying carpet from Aladdin, who said childhood dreams can't come true. There were various enchantments on it to mimic the nature of the original flying carpet, even its semi-conscious nature. The carpet gently floated closer until it was floating just in front of us. It lightly nudged Lalatina and I. It seems it wants us to get on, so let's go. I said as I pulled Lalatina along. Yet feeling a slight resistance, I turned to see Lalatina staring at the carpet awestruck. It has an ego. I heard her mumble in amazement. It doesn't have a true ego, just the barest seed of one. God-grade equipment has some form of ego as they choose their wielders. The flying carpet just has a bit more developed ego than most God-grade equipment. It is amazing that you could create something with even the barest hints of an ego master. Something like that is in the realm of the creator god. Lalatina said as she looked at me with infatuation in her eyes. I suppose so. Creation is the domain of Veldneva, isn't it? I shook my head. Anyways, that doesn't matter right now. I took a seat towards the back of the carpet and spread my legs, placing Lalatina in between them, her butt right against my crotch. She wiggled her ass slightly, rubbing it against my crotch, and going by her devious smile, she was trying to tease me. Minx. I ignored her teasing and instead prompted her to do something else that would hopefully take her off guard. She blushed slightly as I forced her to lean back against my chest. She looked up at me with a multitude of emotions in her eyes, lust, desire, infatuation, obsession, but most of all, love. This demon of mass destruction really was adorable. I willed the carpet that was now bound to me to ascend, and it quickly acquiesced. The carpet flew at a moderate speed until we were out of the city before immediately breaking the sound barrier and instantly shooting through the clouds. Lalatina didn't seem bothered at all by the sudden burst in speed. She could fly and run multiple times faster herself, after all. With a simple wave of my hand, the clouds scattered away, allowing for a perfect view of the land below. The forest in the distance, the gigantic river that cut through it, the gigantic mountains. It was all clear for us to enjoy. It is quite beautiful, this world that Veldneva created. She muttered, her face becoming softer as a faint smile grew. As a demon, she was used to constant fights and destruction. But right now, she felt a peace unlike any before. I nodded. Yeah, this world really was his masterpiece. Lalatina leaned further back into me, her body relaxing as we just enjoyed each other's company and warmth. I lightly tapped the carpet under us, prompting it to accelerate further, easily breaking the sound barrier over multiple times. We would have left a bunch of sonic explosions behind if I hadn't used my law domination to make them moot. Of course, Lalatina still didn't react to the burst in speed, which wasn't surprising. If anything, she simply snuggled up closer to me to enjoy the ride. Her eyes kept wandering across the entire landscape, almost as if seeing it in a new light for the first time. I didn't bother concealing our presence since we were both already suppressing our power to the maximum. No one would even be able to tell we were demons. Well, no one would be able to tell Lalatina was a demon. My black sclera kinda gave it away, but I'd be disguising that once we landed. Even though we lost track of time, it didn't take us long to arrive in the bounds of the kingdom of Raja. We spotted the beautiful waterfalls the kingdom had become known for in the distance, and I could feel Lalatina perk up as we approached the kingdom. She was really interested in seeing where her little pet project went. What exactly went on in this kingdom, Lalatina? I know the general bits since Rimuru told me, but he didn't really go into detail. He said some demons from your lineage were causing mischief and that you had groomed Toa's lineage to find the ideal body. Lalatina puffed her generous chest up. Hee, that's about right, master. But if you want more details, then I will explain further. I'll start from the beginning with the history of this kingdom. I nodded. Sure. Well, back at the start, before I got involved, Raja was a kingdom surrounded by threats. Monsters from Jura managed to make their way over and threaten the peace and safety of the kingdom's people, and then humans also attempted to take advantage of Raja. Raja was a kingdom that accepted non-humans. However, they lacked status, so they were taken advantage of and basically bullied. Explained Lalatina. Dwargon also takes in non-humans, but they had enough status and manpower to tell every other kingdom to fuck off and mind their own business. Raja was a fairly small kingdom, so they unfortunately could not do that, though it is admirable that they took in non-humans as well. I saw an opportunity and reached out to the Queen of Raja and made a deal with her. I gave her a tiara that had some of my own power in it, on the condition that when my vessel was born, her kingdom would freely hand the vessel over to me, and the Queen agreed. This tiara allowed the Queen to find enough strength within herself to gain control over her kingdom once more while also passing my own power through her bloodline so that every generation, a better and better vessel, will be born. Lalatina continued. She really was one hell of a demon, taking advantage of the Queen's circumstances to basically sell one of her descendants. But oh well, I didn't really care what Lalatina got up to in the past, and I wasn't a perfectly moral person either. The Queen continued to use my power to enrich her kingdom, but she could not channel my strength without a cost. Eventually, my power degraded her soul too much, and so she passed away, which was a shame. She was a fun person to observe. My cursed poison was imbued in the tiara, and it was so potent that it infected the Queen's entire bloodline. Lalatina explained giddily. And so each successive generation was also corrupted by my power while wielding the tiara, though, in the end, I suppose the first queen got her wish. Her kingdom has thrived and survived until the modern age. I nodded. I see, and as for Toa, I think I already have a pretty good picture of that entire situation. One of the demons in your lineage poisoned the nearby lake which leaked down into the mines under the lake, and so Toa overtaxed her power and was dying. Lalatina nodded. That's correct. Lord Rimuru then intervened and purified the lake, but Lakua, the demon under me, placed a magic circle under the lake that periodically replenished the poison. Eventually, Toa had to sacrifice herself to save that Kaijin's life, but as a reward for the entertainment she and her foremothers had proved to me, I resurrected her. That sounds about right. Rimuru told me something similar. Lalatina continued to share interesting little tidbits about the kingdom as we were landing. Before we touched down, I made sure to place an illusion over myself. My appearance and facial features were quite well known as a demon lord, so I just made some minor changes. My hair was now black and my pupils red. Of course, I also got rid of the black sclera, which would easily out me as a demon since no other races of the cardinal world had such features. We touched down in front of the entrance to the capital of the Kingdom of Raja. I could spot the palace deeper within the city, and it absolutely towered over everything. "Halt!" yelled one of the knights on duty. He was completely decked out in special grade armor, which was pretty decent out here in the Western nations. I stood up while offering my hand to Lalatina, which she happily took, not quite hiding the adorable little smile that appeared on her face at the platonic contact. My new magic carpet circled around us a few times before flying away into the sun, waiting for me to call upon it again. The knight approached us as he stared into the direction my magic carpet flew off in. Huh. That's a new one. He shook his head and looked back at us. "Welcome to the Kingdom of Raja, sir, madam," greeted the knight. "Thanks, we're just planning to tour around and have some fun." I scored a total hottie, so I want to show her around, you know, I said with a wink. Lalatina blushed and squirmed at my comment while the knight laughed. "Ha ha, I remember when I was just like you back in my youth, picking up lady after lady," the knight bragged. "Though you didn't come here to listen to me brag, in order to enter the capital, you need to pay a fee and be inspected for any weapons and such, which will be logged in our records," the knight informed. I nodded. "That's fine with me. This was standard practice in practically all kingdoms, even mine, to a certain extent, though in my territory, a lot of things were far more efficient and automated." The knight sighed in relief. "Thank you for being so understanding. Many people do not like being inspected." I shrugged my shoulders. I didn't really care since I didn't have any weapons on my person. This was just a basic preventive measure. The knight quickly used some kind of scrying magic to analyze what items we had on our person and nothing else. I made sure not to block the analysis, as did Lalatina. The knight nodded. "All right then, you're good to go. All that remains is the fee. I threw him a couple of silver coins, and then we were on our way. Lalitina and I began wandering around the capital. There were all sorts of stores and food stands. Some foods were from modern Earth which had to have appeared here due to the influence of Tempest. You were right, Master. So much has changed, Lalitina said as she munched on a churro. I nodded. Yeah, it seems that being allied with Tempest has helped Raja greatly. Even their military has expanded. Raja had a fairly small military to my knowledge, about 2,000 men strong, which was incredibly insufficient in my opinion, but they also had wyverns. Aero managed to tame even more wyverns for Raja, which had greatly assisted in aerial combat. Not many can freely fly, only those who have wings or are somewhat powerful are capable of such a thing, so having an aerial advantage was useful. Not to mention that wyverns are around the B+ rank, something that matters somewhat in the Western nations. Ooh, let's go there, Master. Lalitina tugged on my sleeve as she pointed at a clothing store. What is it with women and clothes? Lalitina could literally materialize whatever outfit she wanted. Sure. That's fine. I mumbled as I followed her along. We were getting some stares already since Lalitina looked like a supernaturally beautiful young woman. Of course, I was one of the most handsome men alive. Lalitina giddily walked into the store, her hand still in mine as she pulled me along. It seems Lalitina was really enjoying the state despite her masochism. She did seek to connect with me in other ways, something my new intrinsic skill, lover, allowed me to see easily. With it, I could see the various needs that my lovers desired but were too disciplined to ask for themselves. No matter how much affection or care I show, one thing I know is that for a long time to come, they will see themselves as my subordinates first and then lovers second rather than the reverse. But perhaps over time, that could flip, who knows? The shopkeeper greeted us with a friendly smile. Hello, sir, madam. Did you require any assistance today? The shopkeeper was a female demi-human. I could see some cat ears on her head. Where are the lingeries, miss? Questioned Lalitina. Ah, I see where this is going. A smile grew on the woman's face. Foo-fa-foo, you youngsters. She sighed before pointing towards the back of the store. It's over there, do come and see me if you need further assistance. Lalitina nodded and began leading me towards the back of the store, towards the women's section. Ah, so that's what you want to do. Lalitina's smile grew wider as she quickly nodded. Yup. I haven't had the chance for you to pick what you like on me, so choose whatever, and I'll put it on for you, Master. My whole body and soul are yours to use as you desire. Dress me up and toy with me like a doll. I sighed. Degenerate. Lalitina squirmed at my words. Ah. She moaned as she rubbed her thighs together. Seeing that this was likely inevitable when it came to Lalitina, I looked over the products the store had in stock. I pointed to a few of the lingerie sets I thought would look great on Lalitina. Those. Lalitina looked at the ones I pointed out as she smiled seductively. Perfect? She grabbed them all off the shelves they were on and practically skipped to the dressing room. A couple of moments later, Lalitina seductively called me. Come in, Master. I pushed aside the curtains to the changing room and stared wide-eyed at the seductively posing Lalitina. She giggled, seeing my flabbergasted state. Lalitina wore an alluring set of semi-transparent white lingerie that accentuated her curves, from her wide, childbearing hips to her taut stomach and ample bust. The ensemble was completed with seductive white garter belts, adding an extra touch of elegance and allure. I would have totally popped a boner if I didn't control myself. Instead I opted to simply give Lalitina 2 thumbs up. Looking good. He Master praised me. Mumbled Lalitina. Lalitina then went on to change out of a few different pairs of lingerie, showing me each of them. In the end she ended up taking all of them, since Lalitina was beautiful enough to make practically anything work. We paid for the clothes and then left with Lalitina storing the lingerie in her spatial storage. I offered my hand to Lalitina, which she eagerly grabbed. Now where do you want to go? Lalitina looked thoughtful for a moment before shrugging. Let's just walk around. Any time spent with you as a dream come true, Master. Ah. Critical hit. I would have blushed if I didn't hold it back. Sure, if that's what you want. Lalitina and I continued to wander around the kingdom, just doing whatever struck our fancy. As we were making our way toward a circus we had heard about, we were interrupted. Madam. A nervous voice called out. I sighed. It seems like at least one of our identities has been outed. Perhaps I really should have placed an illusion over Lalitina too. We both turned to the voice and were met with arrow. Lady Lalitina? I noticed the crowd was keeping a good distance away, almost as if they were afraid of Arrow. Huh, it seems like he has a bit of a reputation. She turned to Arrow with an unamused look on her face. What was your name again? Arrow. Responded Arrow. He seemed to have regained some of his cool. Lalitina tilted her head. I see. What did you require to the point that you need to interrupt my date with my master? She asked frostily. Your master? Iroh mumbled as he looked at me. But I thought Lord Fela. Are you Lord Felix? Iroh asked. I nodded and waved. Sup Iroh? Iroh sighed. Next time you decide to visit Raja, please do so through the proper channels. Queen Toa became very nervous once she sensed Lady Lalitina's presence. She was able to sense Lalitina? Iroh nodded. There still exists a connection between Queen Toa and the primordial of purple, which allowed Queen Toa to feel Lady Lalitina's presence close by. TCH. Lalitina clicked her tongue. Queen Toa is requesting an audience. If you are not busy, would you please consider accepting? Iroh practically begged. I forgot just how superior my position as a demon lord is to most royals. Here I was in a foreign kingdom, and the ruler of that same kingdom had to request an audience with me rather than simply demanding one. I looked at Lalitina, who seemed unwilling, but unlike her I was reasonable. We'll continue our date after, Lalitina. Besides, didn't you want to see what changes have happened in the kingdom of Raja? Seeing the queen will probably help you with that goal. Lalitina sighed. Fine, but I wanted to spend more time with you, master, Lalitina whined needily. We can spend more time together later. I looked at Iroh, who was just staring at Lalitina, flabbergasted. Lead the way then. Iroh snapped back out of his daze and nodded. We began making our way towards the palace. The closer we got to it, the nicer the establishments became, which was natural. From what I noticed, Iroh's reputation was very positive overall. This kingdom was more accepting of Magians than others, and he had proven his use to the kingdom many times over. You should come to Sisako sometime, Iroh. I voiced out. Iroh sighed. I know, I have been busy with my duties, however, there are not many that the queen trusts, so I must remain by her side as much as possible. Hey, is that the only reason? I teased. Blah. And no. I would never see the queen in that way. It would be disrespectful to her station. Even Lalitina couldn't help but laugh at Iroh. Foo-fa-foo, I can see why exactly I liked you. You are an amusing creature, Iroh. Iroh shivered lightly. Thank you. We walked straight through the palace gates and into the palace. The palace was nice, not as nice as mine, of course, but that was pretty natural. I have many abilities that allow me to customize my palace to my desire, and with Brahma I can do some even more extreme stuff without having to worry. Well, time to meet the queen. I mumbled. Chapter 145, Date in the Kingdom of Raja Part 2. Well, time to meet the queen. I mumbled. I am sure that Queen Toa will be delighted to see you again, Lord Felix. She did not get much of an opportunity to communicate with you at the Tempest Founding Festival, said Iroh. I nodded. Right. I was pretty busy having fun and left most of the political stuff to Arcuaid, which is what I guess I always do. Truly, I would be doomed without that woman. Various groups of guards, maids, and butlers all bowed to Iroh on the way while they looked at Lalitina and I in curiosity. It seems Iroh has some status in this palace. That must have been difficult to acquire, as even if the kingdom of Raja openly accepts non-humans, humans will always be biased against magical-based beings. Something that is honestly natural. When one is faced with beings that have so many racial advantages over one's own species, it's natural to get jealous, to be envious, and what can one do in that situation? Well, they can try their best to marginalize the so-called superior species. In my opinion, Magians and other magical-based beings are far superior to humans, and that isn't me being racist. Magical-based beings live far longer, they don't need to eat as much food and water, they have stronger bodies, they have their own internal magical capacity, which is something humans need to evolve to acquire. In the end, it's only natural that humans would become paranoid and biased against Magians. Though Eldenova clearly saw something in humanity. It seems you're quite respected, Iroh. I voiced out. Iroh sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. Queen Toa has praised me much in the public's eye. I owe everything I've acquired to her, even my very own name. Don't be too humble, Iroh. I'm sure she has supported you so vehemently for a reason. Iroh nodded. I strive each day to prove that her faith in me was not wrong. Magian who have been named are crazy loyal to their namers. It's just the culture of this world, and it's something I can be said to have taken advantage of. Even demons follow this culture, though I have a feeling that if either Arcuaid, Megaman, or Lalitina didn't see something in me, they wouldn't have decided to serve me. Those three operate by their own rules. I looked to my side, where Lalitina was hugging my arm between her generous bust and giving me doe eyes. Lalitina's code was just degeneracy mixed with a little romance, as I had recently come to find. If I may ask, how did you first meet Lady Lalitina? Asked Iroh. When you first left the ogre village, I knew you would become someone. You were far too strong not to, Even Master Hikaru was unable to truly get you to become serious in a spar, let alone Winsako, Benimaru, Sai, Shuna, and I would all face you at once. And yet befriending and subordinating a primordial was something completely unexpected. Lalatina pushed my hand further into the heavenly embrace of her breasts. Foo-foo. Of course, my master would subordinate us. His boundless love fully embraced us and pulled us in, and now we are forever ruined. Lalatina giggled lewdly. Iroh scrunched his eyebrows as he looked at me in confusion. I just sighed. Ignore her, she gets like that sometimes, but to answer your question, I'm not quite sure how it started. I had summoned Arcuaid through a stroke of luck, well, either luck or fate. Arcuaid saw something in me and decided that she wanted to serve me, and after that, Arcuaid recruited the other two for me. Iroh's eyes widened. Lady Arcuaid? The woman that Queen Toa had negotiated with? Just, who could this woman be to have enough pull to recruit two primordials? Ah, did he not know that Arcuaid and Megumin were also primordials? Well, I guess it is pretty unreasonable to expect them to know who Arcuaid and Megumin truly were. I didn't advertise who they wwere to the public after all. Queen Toa and Iroh only knew who Lalatina was due to their shared history with her. The white hair, red eyes. Mumbled Iroh. See, could Arcuaid be? I nodded. Yup, she's the primordial of white, blank. Iroh's lips twitched as he took a deep breath. I see, thank you for informing me. I honestly thought Rimuru would have told you. It's not like I explicitly hide who they are. Iroh nodded and continued leading the way to Queen Toa, though I already sensed her waiting for us in the throne room. It didn't take us long to reach two large doors guarded by two knights who were each wearing unique grade armor with a rare grade spear. That's fairly impressive for a small kingdom like Raja. The knights bowed to Iroh before slowly and dramatically opening the double doors. I noticed a throne in the center back of the room. It was fitted with various jewels and engravings, and sitting on the throne was Queen Toa herself. Toa smiled at us before the double doors closed behind us. She got up from her seat and began walking towards us, though I did notice her nervously glancing at Lalatina, which was understandable. Toa greeted us slightly. Lord Felix, Lady Lalatina. I nodded. It's nice to see you again, Queen Toa. She blushed lightly. There is no reason for any titles, Lord Felix. Sure, then you don't need to refer to me with any title either. I was already mentally referring to her as Toa, but I felt that the proper decorum would be appropriate in this situation, so I called her by her title. Respect and all that. Hearing me, Toa smiled. Excellent. I had wished to speak with you more during the Tempest Founding Festival, but I understand that your other duties had kept you busy. Ah, yes. My other duties. I apologize for that, but I did hear that my representative had made some arrangements with you. Toa nodded. Ah yes, Lady Arcuaid was a truly excellent negotiator. You are lucky to have her in your service. Iroh's lips twitched as I mentioned Arcuaid. I'm sure he'll talk to Toa about Arcuaid once we're gone. I smiled. Don't I know it? Lalatina pouted at me. I rolled my eyes. I'm lucky to have you in my service, too, Lalatina. Hee hee. Lalatina giggled. Toa looked at Lalatina oddly. Lady Lalatina truly does act differently compared to what has been described by my ancestor. Toa then shook her head. I suppose that does not matter. Why don't we talk somewhere more comfortable? I nodded. That's fine with me. Lalatina just nodded along with me. Toa nodded and led us towards a lounge while giving Lalatina and me a short tour of the palace. Once we were seated, Toa turned to the butler that was present. Could you acquire some drinks and snacks? The butler bowed. As you wish, Queen Toa. Once he was gone, it was just Lalatina, Toa, Iroh, and I left in the room. So, what has brought you here to the kingdom of Raja? Asked Toa. I gestured to Lalatina. I'm sure you know, but Raja and Lalatina have some shared history. She was curious about how this kingdom was doing, so we decided to wander around and see what's been going on. Toa shifted nervously. I see. Thank you for the concern, Lady Lalatina. Lalatina laughed. I was just curious about what happened to this kingdom without my backing. The first queen needed my backing so other kingdoms don't close in and take everything valuable in Raja, but it seems that your alliance with Tempest has afforded you some leeway. A strained smile formed on Toa's face while Iroh, who was standing behind Toa, just looked stony. I see. Sir Rimuru has been a great help to the kingdom of Raja and we will always aid him should he require it. Said Toa. I'm sure Rimuru will be happy to hear that. Toa smiled. I must admit, when I first felt Lady Lalatina's presence close by I could not help but be worried. You must understand that the last time she intervened, chaos ensued within the royal palace. Lalatina shrugged her shoulders. My subordinates did all that without my permission. They've been punished. Before Toa could respond, The butler returned and placed some snacks and tea on the table. Toa smiled gratefully. Thank you. The butler bowed before leaving. Toa took a sip of tea before responding. I understand. I was simply worried if something else would occur within the kingdom. Your presence alone seems to be enough for change to occur, Lady Lalatina. Lalatina puffed up her chest as she ate a pastry. Of course. One must be at least that remarkable to serve my master. Toa smiled. I see, it seems like you have some truly capable subordinates, Felix. I nodded. Yeah, they definitely make my life a lot easier. I thought back to Siko, my first subordinate in this life, my so-called first secretary. She wasn't perfect at everything, but she has been putting in the effort to improve. She can actually make an edible meal now. Well, they were always edible after she got Cook, but now they don't at least look like trash. She's relying on Cook to carry her cooking ability less and less. Then there was Raiden, my beloved maid who was always there when I needed her. I really do appreciate that woman. Then Arcuaid, who is doing all of my hard work when it comes to ruling for me. I'd hate to do any of that myself, so she's great. Megaman, who is leading and training the military. Lalatina, who is in charge of intelligence. Kurumi, who is leading the beastmen. Even Sukuna, who is trying his best to become more useful. I appreciate and care for all of them. It's hard not to when they do so much for me. Toa nodded. Having good subordinates is key to being a successful ruler. Toa said while looking at Aero, who blushed. Oh yeah, they're fucking. Or at least they want to fuck. Good for you, Aero. I nodded. I agree. I said as I reached forward to grab a muffin. We continued to chat about small things for a little bit before leaving. It seems Toa just wanted to make sure that Lalatina wasn't here to cause trouble, which was honestly understandable considering their shared history. Ugh, that was so boring, master. Whined Lalatina. It wasn't that bad. We got to learn some neat stuff about this kingdom too, and you got to hear directly from the source how the kingdom is doing. Lalatina sighed but nodded. Can we continue our date now, master? Lalatina asked while looking up at me with hopeful doe eyes. I could never say no to that expression. Come on, let's go. I said while holding my hand out. Lalatina happily grabbed my hand as we left the palace. So where do you want to go? I can lead now if you want. Lalatina nodded. Let's do what you want now, master. Alright, Toa mentioned some attractions that do sound somewhat interesting. Apparently Raja now has an arena where weekly tournaments are held. Currently Aero is the reigning champion, but I have a feeling watching the fights of weaklings will be rather boring for both Lalatina and I, so that's out. There were some interesting restaurants that Toa mentioned but I didn't really feel like eating. Why don't we go watch a show? Due to the cultural exchange between Raja and Tempest, some plays have found their way into Raja and are performed at the theater. Lalatina nodded. That sounds fun. It didn't take us long to arrive at the theater. We waited our turn in line before we were up. Hello sir, madam, said the receptionist. What would you like to see today? I looked behind the receptionist where there were various posters of the plays being shown today. I smiled seeing one of the classics. I wasn't a huge fan but perhaps Lalatina would like it. Romeo and Juliet. Wonderful choice, sir, said the receptionist. Do you have VIP seats with a better view of the show? The receptionist nodded. We do, but those are reserved for diplomats and similar figures. I nodded and pulled a seal out of my breast pocket. Toa had given me this when I was leaving, which allowed me to enjoy the VIP treatment if I wished. The receptionist's eyes widened as he examined the seal. This is genuine. Very well, then we will provide you the best service possible, sir, madam. I nodded. Thanks. How much is it? It is free for revered diplomats such as yourself, sir, said the receptionist. But I wasn't really a diplomat, but I guess it's fine. Toa gave me the seal knowing what authority it would grant me. I see, thank you. The receptionist gestured to a man to the side of the booth. He will guide you to your seats and will be your server for the show. I nodded. Got it, thanks. It was my pleasure, sir. Once we were done talking to the receptionist, the server approached us. Hello sir, madam. My name is Arnold and I will be your server for the show. I nodded. Nice to meet you, Arnold. My name is Felix, and this is Lalatina. Arnold's lips twitched slightly. It is quite daring to take on the name of a demon lord, you know. I nervously laughed. Right, I was always a bit of a daredevil. It's honestly kind of funny that just having the same name as a demon lord is basically taboo, even if someone else had that name before. I wonder if there are any other Felixes out there in the cardinal world. I wonder how they feel knowing that they are the inferior Felix. I am the true Felix. Arnold sighed. It is your choice. Now, are you ready to take your seats, or did you wish to look around before that? I looked at Lalatina, who seemed to be gazing at me in a daze. Wasn't this girl too obsessed? I think we can take our seats now. Arnold nodded. Follow me then. Welp, hopefully, this show is entertaining. Lalatina and I made our way out of the theater. So, did you like it? Lalatina nodded. It was an interesting story, but why was everyone so dramatic? I shrugged my shoulders. That's just how Shakespeare is. I looked up to the sky. Now it's getting late, so let's head back. Lalatina pouted but nodded nonetheless. I called my magic carpet towards us, and a few moments later, it appeared. Many onlookers were staring at it curiously, but we ignored them as we sat on the carpet and took off. Once we were high up in the sky, the carpet accelerated and broke the sound barrier. I had a lot of fun today, Master. Lalatina said with a giggle. I'm glad. We haven't really spent much platonic time together, so hopefully, this is a start. Hearing me, Lalatina looked at me with such obsession and love that if this were a hentai world, she would have hearts in her eyes. Now that I think about it, the heart eyes are kinda hot. I can see the appeal. Hee hee yes. She mumbled out giddily. I sighed, a fond smile on my face as we sat in silence. It didn't take us long to arrive back in my palace. The moment we touched down on the ground, Raiden appeared in front of me. I apologize for not greeting you sooner, Master. I was not able to sense your arrival from the training dimension. Raiden apologized in shame. I waved her off. It's fine, you were busy getting stronger, which is more important. I could sense the gains Raiden had, her reserves grew a bit, but I'm sure her technique has improved the most out of anything. Midrei is a beast of a man, he's been training for 2,000 or so years trying to catch up to Milim according to Milim herself. In the present day he could easily manage to match some true Daemon lords, and he could fight on the ultimate level due to his divinity. If there was anyone I could genuinely admire in this world, it was him. The sheer hard work he put in was something special. Raiden nodded, but I could tell she was still guilty. How about you make it up to me? You devote an entire day solely to me, and we go out. Raiden looked at me in confusion. That does not seem to be a viable form of punishment. My entire being is already devoted to you. It's punishment because I said it is. Raiden nodded. I see. I apologize for doubting you, Master. I nodded, a satisfied smile on my face. Good. Tomorrow I'll take you to Milim's territory. I need to thank Midrei for helping you out. There is no need for that, Master. Sir Midrei had already said that he was more than happy to be of assistance and is always willing to train young dragons. Argued Raiden. I shrugged my shoulders. It's still polite. Most people couldn't hope to have the teachings of a master like him, besides I wanna have some fun with Milim. Raiden nodded as if she had reached some kind of great conclusion. Ah, I see. You just wish to use this as an excuse to see Lady Milim. Very well then, I will accompany you while you have fun with Lady Milim. Raiden said stoically. Was it just me, or was she getting sassy? I guess that's a good thing though, it shows her ego has developed further. The Raiden from the past wouldn't even consider the option of speaking out against me or questioning my motives. Though I could tell she was just questioning me out of curiosity, out of a desire to get to understand my needs better. Lover is useful for things like understanding others. I'll call you when I'm leaving then. For now, I need to accompany Lalatina. I said while motioning to my purple demon, who was quietly standing by my side. Hee hee, it's no problem, Master. I don't mind waiting for you to catch up with Raiden. She's been working really hard, so she deserves a reward too, said Lalatina. Huh, did Lalatina and Raiden actually get along better than I thought? I knew they were friendly, but it was nice to see them getting a bit closer. Raiden blushed slightly. I do not need a reward for my efforts, Master. I shook my head. I rewarded Arcuaid, Lalatina, and Megaman, so I'll also reward you when the time comes, but for now, I'm off. Raiden bowed. I wish you well, Master. I nodded, and with a blink, I transported us directly into my palace. I remember that Raiden had said some time back that she was able to use holy magic, but she hadn't really used it much in the spar we had some time back. Perhaps her holy magic wasn't strong enough to be effective in our fight and so she just refrained from using it. Maybe I can help Raiden out a bit with holy magic. I can manipulate spiritrons at a level few can match, so I should be able to teach her some more when it comes to holy magic. Maybe we can find a way to fuse disintegration with Raiden's lightning abilities, and I'm sure that would make for a formidable combination. But that's for later. And that wraps up the date. Did you have fun, Lalatina? Lalatina vigorously nodded her head. It was one of the best times in my entire life. Huh, well that's something when considering the fact that Lalatina has been alive for eons. I think that was a rather successful date then. Lalatina nervously shifted. Would you like to enjoy my body tonight, Master? She purred out seductively. However, I could tell she was embarrassed. Hey, It seems our date hit her hard. Lalatina isn't used to non-sexual displays of affection, which was a mistake on my part, one I'll have to correct. She's completely fine with being a complete degenerate eager to serve me, but when it comes to romance, she's as new as any prepubescent teenager. I grabbed her by the chin, tilting her head up before leaning forward slightly. Of course, I would like to enjoy you and your body, my beloved Lalatina. I purred right into her ear. Lalatina gave me a full body shiver. Ooh. She moaned out as her thighs began to shake. I had used another one of Lover's sub-skills, one called Alluring Whisper, which at its core made my voice incredibly alluring. I could use it to excite my target to the peak of pleasure, to the point that I could make one orgasm just from whispering sweet nothings into their ear, or I could just turn their panties into goo, but not quite allowing them to reach orgasm. I could make entire legions of women turn into goo with my voice alone, not that I'd even want to do that. But still, Lover was a fun skill. Othinus was doing God's work out here. It is my duty and pleasure to help you achieve your wishes, Master. Ultimate Wingwoman Othinus. All hail Othinus. Sex skills are great. With my hand still under her chin, I teleported the two of us to my bedroom. Lalatina didn't even seem to notice the change as she gazed at me with a multitude of emotions in her eyes: lust, submission, excitement, obsession, zeal, happiness, but most of all, love. She really was well and truly obsessed with me, wasn't she? That is correct. She has been irreversibly tainted with your essence, Master. Though calling it a taint would be incorrect, it is more of a blessing than a taint. I wouldn't betray the emotions Lalatina held for me. Despite everything I had done in this new life of mine, I wasn't that scummy. But that's enough thinking for now. I want to enjoy the delectable meal in front of me. My hand under her chin began to trail downwards alongside my other free hand, causing Lalatina to let out a needy whine. Once both my hands found their place on Lalatina's curvy hips, I pulled her closer to the point that her breasts were pressed flush against my own chest. The squishiness of her memories was heavenly, even through the layer of clothing we were both wearing. Lalatina's pouty lips approached me as a needy look shone in her eyes. Lalatina moaned as I conquered her submissive tongue and began having my way with it. She was trying to grind herself onto me, eager for any sort of contact between her crotch and me, but due to our positioning she wasn't having much luck with it, so she gave up and did something else. She locked her legs behind me and began rubbing her covered pussy against my abdomen as she continued to suck on my tongue, eager to swallow my saliva. Eventually I pulled back from the kiss. Lalatina trailed after me for a moment before realizing what she was doing. Ah, that was excellent, Master. Lalatina purred. Well, we're just getting started, my dear. I responded as I moved us towards my bed. Lalatina seductively licked her lips as I sat down on the bed with her now in my lap. Did you wish for me to serve you, Master? She asked seductively as she leaned forward and licked my neck. I shivered slightly at feeling her tongue along my neck. I suppose that would be nice. I had wanted to stay away from the super dominant and submissive sex we usually had for tonight, since that's what we always do, but Lalatina's desires were going off like fireworks. Her favorite way of having sex was just allowing me to use her as I wished while serving me with her entire being. I may have recently discovered that Lalatina likes some romance mixed in, but in the end when it comes to our lovemaking she only has one preference. Of course. She giggled out as she released her locked legs from behind me and began to trail down my body until she was kneeled between my legs. I instantly transported my pants off my body with them appearing in the corner of my room, leaving me in just my underwear, which was already heavily tinted by my own arousal. When I was with Luminous I had used Lover to permanently transform myself slightly, making my entire being more sexual because why not? The natural musk my penis released has been amplified 1,000-fold and also gained some aphrodisiac properties to it, making it addicting to smell. I transformed the musk I released by imbuing it with lust energy. The lust energy enters another being's body through the musk itself and causes pleasure to rampage through their body. If taken to the extreme it can even cause soul-level addiction. Oh. Lalatina moaned out in confusion as she took in a whiff of my scent. Her thighs were quivering as she struggled to maintain focus. Perhaps that was a bit too much? I manually lowered the intensity of my aroma. After a few moments Lalatina gained some control over herself. What was that, Master? Lalatina breathily asked as she pressed her nose up against the tent in my underwear. Just a new ability I picked up. Lalatina giggled deliriously. It was. Excellent. Lalatina pulled back from my crotch reluctantly as she snapped her fingers, stripping herself of her first layer of clothing, leaving her in the white lingerie I had picked out for her earlier. She must have discreetly used magic to swap out her lingerie while I wasn't paying attention. I nodded. I really had good taste. The white lingerie was semi-transparent and accentuated her curves, from her wide, childbearing hips to her taut stomach and ample bust. The white garters were just the cherry on the top. Lalatina was a total babe. Immediately after stripping, Lalatina immediately dived back down for my crotch. Her nose was pressed right up against my crotch once again as she began practically inhaling the musk I was releasing. Ooh. She squealed as she creamed herself. Did she really come from just the scent alone? Lover is seriously broken. This is an NTR bastard skill 100%. I will use it with the respect, honor, and integrity it deserves. Sorry master, I'll serve you now. Lalatina panted. I could clearly see her important bits through the semi-transparent lingerie. I could see her pretty pink nipples that were indenting against the bra and were as hard as diamonds. The panties protected slightly more, but even then I could see a clearly visible camel toe with Lalatina's juices leaking out the side. It almost looked like her pussy was trying to clench and suck something in. It seems her lower lips were desperate for something to fill them. Lalatina's hands trailed up until the band of my underwear as she slowly, almost reverently pulled my underwear down. The moment my cock was released, it audibly slapped against Lalatina's face with a thwack. It's somewhat stronger now. Lalatina practically moaned out as my cock towered over her. Lalatina gave the side of my shaft a short, chaste kiss before she began slobbering all over it. She repositioned herself slightly so that my cock was no longer towering over her before she gave the tip a quick lick. She licked her way down the shaft, eager to cover it in her essence entirely. Her nostrils were flaring the entire time through. My musk was completely dominating her pleasure as she quaked with miniature orgasms of her own. As Lalatina licked me all over, her cute little pink tongue curled along my shaft as she asked, "Am I doing good, master?" She asked, eager for praise. "You are. I didn't expect any less from my personal bedwarmer." I could tell that my words hit the spot for Lalatina as she immediately reached another orgasm right after. If she were a normal woman I would be worried. She wouldn't even be capable of orgasming as much as she was. I wouldn't be able to either. But spiritual life forms go brrrr. Thank you, she mumbled out as she pressed one final kiss to my tip before spreading her mouth wide open and enveloping my cock in her pouty lips. I groaned out in pleasure at the feeling of Lalatina enveloping my shaft with her oh-so-kissable lips. She only became more enthusiastic as she continued to worship the underside of my shaft with her tongue. She was even taking pleasure in her oral service. From what I was sensing from her through lover, she really is an oral slut. The pleasure that she was feeling from orally servicing me was comparable to what sex feels like to her normally when I'm not enhancing her pleasure. I seriously broke her when it comes to reacting to pleasure. Normal levels of pleasure from oral sex, and absurd mind-breaking levels of pleasure for sex between us, and that's also when I'm not enhancing her pleasure. If Lalatina wasn't a primordial demon and a spiritual life form, she would have broken multiple times over. Lalatina was staring into my eyes with obsessive love and worship shining through her dilated pupils. I placed a hand on Lalatina's hair as she pushed herself further down my shaft until her lips were pressed firmly against my pelvis. She really was a throat queen. I could feel Lalatina's tongue swirl under my shaft, thoroughly licking every nook and cranny she could get to, even as she moaned out in debaucherous pleasure before she started humming along my shaft as well, giving off a pleasant vibration. I smirked as I used lover to do what I had done to Luminous. I turned up the pleasure sensors on Lalatina's tongue to the point that her tongue would now be as receptive to pleasure as Lalatina's clit was. Lalatina's dreamy eyes widened in pleasure and shock as she orgasmed once more. She moaned into my cock as she struggled to keep her eyes open and focused on me. I reduced the sensitivity of Lalatina's tongue so she could continue with my blowjob. A few moments later, Lalatina slowly pulled back through sheer force of will and then shoved her face all the way back down again, roughly fucking her own face with my cock. Glack. 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 Lalatina continued moaning as she roughly moved her face up and down. I could see the indent of my cock going down Lalatina's throat, which increased my own pleasure. Lalatina's tongue began desperately rubbing the underside of my cock as her orgasmic throat vibrated from her blissful screams. Lalatina, she continued to wetly gurgle on her master's cock, eager to enhance his pleasure in any way possible. She was his cock sheath, a thought that made her core clench in need and desire. Her tongue flicked and tasted the underside of her master's divine cock. She didn't need to breathe so she could continue her service for as long as her master desired without any sort of breaks, something she was glad for. Though part of her was curious what asphyxiation felt like. What would it feel like to fall unconscious on her master's glorious cock? She promptly came to the thought of that alone. Lalatina gazed up into her master's blue eyes as she enjoyed the entire experience of serving her master, the way his cock was lodged firmly in her throat causing her throat to feel heavenly, the way her pussy throbbed, eager to take her master's shaft inside of her. A moment later she stored her bra inside her spatial storage, revealing her bare breasts to the world. She noticed her master eyeing them, which caused her body to shiver pleasantly. She could already tell what her master wanted, and so she reluctantly pulled up from her master's glorious cock and enveloped it in her soft tit flesh as she lovingly sucked him off. She pressed her tits against his cock firmly, grinding down on his far rod as she practically orgasmed in place. Her eyes fluttered as she felt the warmth of her master's cock press against her breasts. Her eyes grew lidded as she worked to pleasure her master. Her pussy was spasming in debaucherous pleasure as she continued to smell her master's divine scent and taste his divine rod. This was truly heaven. This must have been what she was born to do, to be her master's cock slave, his bed warmer, and his companion. Her thoughts were interrupted as she orgasmed once again. She moaned like a whore as she dirtied the floor underneath her even more. Would her master make her clean her mess up? Perhaps with her tongue? Whatever ability her master was using to play her like a fiddle was truly something she had no hope of ever resisting. It was as if it was a skill designed to let her master conquer and dominate her. Saliva dribbled out of her mouth and splashed into the valley of her tits, further lubricating her master's cock. Her whole body trembled as she was racked with orgasm. Her fingers were pressed taut against the side of her breasts, squishing it further into her master's cock as she went cross-eyed. "Oh, that's good." Her master sighed. A smug look formed on his face. "Look at you, orgasming from giving me a blowjob and a tit fuck." She quivered at her master's taunting voice. "It's good that I picked you up. You'd be a menace to society without someone to keep you in check." She desperately nodded on his cock, wanting him to keep her forever and ever. The hand on her hair reached down and cupped her cheek. "And now you're mine, and you're never getting away," her master said possessively. Her pussy spasmed. "MMM." She moaned into her master's cock. Her master's words alone were enough of a catalyst for her to reach her largest orgasm of the night, perhaps one of her largest orgasms ever. Her thighs collapsed under her as she squirted out her juices through the thong she wore for her master. And in that moment, or perhaps long before, Lalatina knew she would do anything for the man. No, the god above her, her love and loyalty so great that she would even subdue her fellow primordials and bend them over a table for her master to have his way with them. If he ordered her to die, she would do so with no questions asked, though she preferred if he didn't ask her to do that. She enjoyed serving her master in life more than death, even if she would reincarnate eventually. She knew she was changed irreversibly by her master when they first met. His power and energy stained her very soul in his color when he hurled that soul-level attack at her. Her master chuckled as he began pushing his cock further through the valley of her breasts and deeper into her mouth. She lavished it with her tongue as her master used her hole for its proper use. "I'm going to come, don't swallow," her master ordered. She nodded excitedly, desperate for her master's essence, for proof that her service was adequate. Her fellatio took on a far more needy and desperate measure as she tried to coax out her master's seed. Her master gently ran his hand through her hair even as he roughly fucked her face, something that secretly made her insides feel incredibly warm and giddy. She felt her master's shaft expand as his seed began pouring into her mouth, but she followed his orders and didn't swallow, causing seed to dribble out of her mouth and make a mess out of her. Her pussy spasmed as she orgasmed to her master's divine taste and smell once more. It didn't take long for her entire upper body to be covered in her master's semen. "It's always interesting to recreate hentai physics in real life," her master said as he looked at her cum-soaked form. "Good girl, now open your mouth." She quickly pulled up off his cock and spread her lips open, her tongue lolled out dripping semen over her tits as she showed her mouth full of her master's divine seed. She could feel her master's cock throb in the valley of her breasts. She could only hope that meant he was satisfied. Her master smiled at her. "Good girl, you can swallow now." She gulped all of her master's seed down loudly, and once that was done she began to scoop up globs of his thick semen and drink down that too. Her master's cock twitched even further at the sight. Once she cleaned up all the visible globs of semen, she snapped her fingers, cleaning herself off fully. "Now that you're cleaned up, let's continue," her master said. She couldn't hide the eager shake of her hips at her master's words. Her master smiled fondly. "Get on the bed, you horny so." "Hee hee, yes," she sang out. A moment later she was on all fours on her master's bed, her face pressed against his pillow and her ass high up in the air, shaking back and forth as she eagerly awaited her master's divine cock. She felt a sharp spike of pain hit her ass cheeks as she moaned out, "Ooh." Normally such a thing would not be enough to hurt her, but her master was a special man and had his ways. She could feel her juices leak down her thighs as her pussy quivered in masochistic delight, every part of her being craved for her master, her soul, and her pussy, even her anus, which was created solely for her master's use, was her master's should he desire it. "Why don't we try something new?" Without waiting for her response, she felt a finger press against the rim of her back door. Her anus submissively spread, allowing her master's finger entry. And she moaned out into the pillow. "I heard that it wasn't supposed to be that easy to penetrate," her master mumbled. "Anyway, entire body waves, you master. And no part of me will resist your touch." She moaned into the pillow. "Ah, of course, that makes perfect sense." She was glad her master understood. Her master continued to explore her anus for a few moments, before another finger joined him, and then another. After a few moments he was finger-banging her anus as her pussy spasmed and leaked in pleasure, desperately trying to clench on something that was not there. She squirted out some more of her juices as she orgasmed to her master's toying of her anus. Fleecey Maori. She begged out. Fine, you desperate slut, it's about time I fuck this back door of yours, her master said as he slapped her ass. She felt her master's rod prod her back door before slowly pushing in, violating the last hole she had to offer, completing the process of staining every single part of her in his essence. She clenched the sheets under her. Oh yes. She moaned out as her master pushed deeper and deeper inside of her anus. Her master began thrusting in and out of her back door as an orgasm hit her like a spike to the brain. She felt her very spiritual body vibrate in pleasure. It felt as if she wasn't capable of any higher level thinking at this moment except thinking about her master and his cock. Perhaps that was a bit too much pleasure at once. Her master groaned out, and that was enough to tell her that he had been using his ability to practically fry her spiritual body with pleasure alone. She whined out. She wanted more of that pleasure. She wanted to feel her very spiritual and astral body shiver in delight as they basked in her master's presence. Her master leaned forwards, his palms enveloping her breasts as he dug into them, her hard nipples pleasantly grinding against his palm as her breasts shook. Her master grabbed one of her nipples and pulled on it roughly, causing her to squeal out in pleasure as her body shuddered and jerked as she came again. Yesh yesh yesh. She chanted single-mindedly as she took her master's pounding. She could vividly feel her anus clench on her master's shaft, eager to milk him of his release. She didn't know how long they continued like that, swapping between positions as she came completely undone. She knew without a shadow of a doubt that she would have always been broken on this cock even if her first meeting with her master went differently. Even her powerful spirit would eventually submit to her master. They were now back in the position they started in, face down as up as her master pounded into her. Gee, gonna come soon, her master said with clenched teeth. Come. Do it, Inshed. 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 She chanted out. Her master roughly slapped her in the ass, causing her to squeal like a stuck pig. Fine, you hopeless slut. A few moments later she felt her master's shaft begin to expand as he flooded his cum inside of her. And she mewed like a kitten as she was filled up a steamy hot pool of cum settling inside of her. You. She managed to mumble out in her delirious state. And I you my little Lalatina. Chapter 146, To the City of the Forgotten Dragon. Lalatina blissfully sighed against her master's chest. After some rough love-making, he had decided to go to sleep. She wasn't quite sure why her master made a habit of doing something as mundane as sleeping, but she wouldn't question him about such a minor thing. Now she was resting against her master's muscular chest, his firm arms wrapped around her body, holding her against him as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The familiar lust she always felt for her master had been completely overwhelmed by the giddy yet peaceful being she felt enveloping her being as she cuddled with her master. It was all-encompassing. It felt as if this was where she belonged. She wanted to scream in bliss, but she held herself back since that may wake her beloved master up, ending this wondrous moment. She pressed her face into her master's naked chest, taking in his scent, a scent she would never forget even should she reincarnate. She knew the love she held for her master was in no way normal, it was unnatural, and deranged, but it was her love, and she would hold on to it as tightly as she possibly could. That was just who Lalatina was. She stiffened as her master moved. She had feared that she had woken him up from his slumber, but thankfully he was simply changing positions. She used this opportunity to change her own position, rising slightly so she could bury her face in the crook of her master's neck. She deeply breathed in his scent and sighed in contentment. Today was an excellent day for Lalatina. She got to go on a romantic date with her master, which satisfied some of her more well-hidden cravings, but it was expected that her master could see through her desires. She enjoyed the date immensely, and then they got to their lovemaking, which was as excellent and mind-breaking as usual, if not more so, since her master used her as his test subject for his many new sexual abilities. Truly, Arcuaid coming to her territory in the demon realm and bringing her to see her master was the best thing to ever happen to her. She was never bored and she had someone to devote herself to. It was a demon's dream come true. Hinata Sakaguchi, Hinata felt herself gain consciousness, but all she saw around her was darkness. All of a sudden, it felt like her heart had stopped. Was everything that happened a dream? Was she back on the fateful night that she was killed by that clown, and everything that had happened since then was a hallucination? She didn't know how to describe what she was feeling, with that thought looming in her mind. Was seeing Felix again a hallucination? Was seeing Luminous and Chloe again also a hallucination? Would she never get to tell Felix how she felt about him? All of a sudden she felt her soul reach out towards a foreign connection without her own input. She panicked for a moment before calming down. The other connection felt somewhat like Felix. She did not know what was happening, but she trusted that feeling she got from the other connection. She would have blushed if she could, since she realized that her very soul was so desperate to connect to Felix that it immediately reached out to his soul when it got the chance. Before you are lost in your thoughts any further, let me interrupt you, no matter how amusing it is to see you spiral. She felt shock flood through her being. She thought she was alone here, wherever she was. Who are you? The voice sounded feminine in nature, but Hinata couldn't be certain. I thought my master had already told you about me? Something about a person he trusted to always have his back. Hinata would have flinched if she could. She didn't show it, but it did hurt slightly that she couldn't be that person for Felix. She didn't blame him. She was too weak to subdue Felix if he ever got out of control. If Felix trusted this unknown being to keep him under control, then that likely meant that it could subdue him as well, if necessary. Subdue him? Why would I ever subdue my master? My whole being belongs to him. I exist solely to serve him as his partner. Should he wish to destroy the world, I will aid him in his goal unless he is being influenced by an outside source. If she could, she would clench her fists. Felix trusted this person to hold him back when needed, and yet this being was unwilling to do so. How adorable. I understand my master's intentions better than anyone in existence, little girl. He does not wish for someone to slay him or subdue him. He simply wishes for someone to be there for him, to be a partner he can rely on. A partner? It matters not. It seems I have already shared too much. I suppose these so-called emotions are influencing me. Could this feeling be jealousy? How intriguing for a being like myself to feel something like that. Why are you here, partner of Felix? She all but demanded. She had already come to the conclusion that she was not hallucinating. She recalled falling unconscious after Felix stopped restraining his power. She fell unconscious after she made a vow that she would catch up to Felix and become someone he could rely on in his times of need. Something she had noticed was that many people relied on Felix, his subordinates, his people, and even Rimuru to a certain extent, yet it seemed like he had no one he himself could rely on. Hinata would become that for him. It was the least he deserved after all he had done for her, not to mention that even if she gained nothing out of it, she would still wish to become someone he could rely on. That was just what love did to her, she supposed. When she loved deeply. She was well aware that she was a brash woman, she had her own flaws, she was headstrong and short-sighted, which she hoped she had worked past. She had trust and intimacy issues, and yet Felix just seemed to break through all her walls and worm his way deep into her soul with his Felixness. She knew she was a sinner. She killed her father for her mother's sake in a moment of hastiness, something that led her mother to join a weird cult. It was thanks to the weight the murder of her father put on her shoulders that she likely couldn't awaken as a true hero. She was old and wise enough to realize that now. She tended to run away from things she was scared of, just as she had run away from Shizu-sensei's affection due to the fear of what Shizu-sensei would think of her if she knew the truth about what type of woman Hinata was. In fact, she was glad she appeared in another world, or else she didn't know how she would live in her original world. Her relationship with her mother became strained after everything after all. Looking back at everything, she could see that the reason she sometimes acted hostile with Felix, or tsundere as Felix called it, was due to her intimacy issues. But she hoped that she had worked past her issues and had become a woman Felix could be proud of. In the end, she had even opened up about her fears and insecurities to Felix, and he still accepted her for who she was. In fact, he wanted her to grow stronger, he wanted her to achieve her goal, and she was sure that Felix would support her in any other dreams she wanted to accomplish. Something that caused her to feel a bunch of good emotions flood through her being. It made her feel like her heart would burst from her chest, and she now knew that she could do anything for that man. He had truly cursed her with his wicked ways. He bestowed upon her a curse of love, the most wicked of all. He really was a demon, doing something so cruel to her. I suppose that is good enough. I can tell you won't turn against my master, so I see nothing wrong with assisting you further. The more powerful you become, the more useful you become to master. The weird voice said. She had given up getting a straight answer about this entity's identity, though she did have her suspicions. What is happening to me? You are undergoing an evolution. You have reached enlightenment after witnessing my master's true glory and are currently undergoing the process of acquiring divinity of your own. I have been sent to assist you in your evolution. So she was evolving? She wasn't sure how she could acquire divinity now that she was back in her original body. She had access to Chloe's divinity back when she would pilot her body, and Chloe achieved divinity by hatching her hero's egg and becoming a true hero sometime after they sealed Veldora. It seems that becoming a true hero wasn't the only way to acquire divinity. That is correct. Now let me see what I am working with here. Do you give me permission to modify your skills? First, answer this question. You said you were sent to assist me. Were you sent by Felix? Quite courageous, are you? Demanding an answer from one such as I when I am here to assist you. The voice then sighed. Fine then, Master would be displeased if I was unable to assist you in becoming far more formidable. As such, if you must know, I was sent by my master, Felix, to assist you in your evolution. If this entity was sent by Felix, then she would give it her trust. She had complete faith in Felix and knew that he wouldn't send someone he didn't trust to help her with something so important. Yes, I give you my permission to modify my skills. Good, I did not need your permission, but having it costs me less energy. It seems this being also shares some other qualities with Felix, like wanting to get the last word in. The voice didn't deem to answer her internal comment. She sat there in silence for what felt like hours. She wasn't sure how much time truly passed, but when one was trapped in a dark void, time lost its meaning. And complete. I did put some work into the new skill I helped create for you. You should be capable of assisting my master to a greater extent now. If Hinata could roll her eyes, she would. This being really was solely focused on Felix, wasn't it? I am not an it. I am a she. The being responded in annoyance. With your evolution, you would have naturally evolved your unique skill, mathematician, into an ultimate skill as your willpower was sufficient, but with my assistance, it has become far more optimized than it should have been. The being said casually, as if what she had done was easy. To be able to modify skills was absurd, let alone modify ultimate skills, something she had only an inkling of knowledge on. She had lived for over 2,000 years, and she had picked up some information during that time, not to mention what Chloe had shared with her, that she had acquired an ultimate skill once they returned to Tempest. What about my other unique skills, Usurper and Vendetta? Usurper was one of her ace cards. With it she could take her opponents by surprise and weaken their abilities while also taking them for her own. Vendetta was in a similar vein. It was a complete wild card when in battle. Its sub-skills were uniquely suited to taking her opponents by surprise. It was quite odd to consider the fact that she had manifested an entirely brand new unique skill solely out of her desire to reach Felix. Perhaps she was a little too obsessed with Felix. No, she was fine, she wasn't obsessed. You are not ready for those unique skills to evolve yet. If I were to force it, then they would be a weaker version of what they have the potential to become, and you would be less useful to my master that way. So she still wasn't ready? Well, she already knew that if she wanted to stand beside Felix and become someone he could rely on, she would have a long way to go. Your goal is pointless, but I know that my words will not stop you from pursuing this path. Very well then, I will observe you with interest, Hinata Sakaguchi. At the very least you are loyal to my master, and that's something I will acknowledge. Farewell. I do not wish to be partially separated from my master any longer. And with that the mysterious presence disappeared, though weirdly enough she still felt a connection to Felix. She felt as if she pulled on that connection she would be able to communicate and transfer information to Felix directly. It felt similar to the connection she had with Luminous, but slightly stronger. Hinata had some suspicions about just what it was that had connected to her consciousness. She did know about Granoa after all, and she knew what exactly Granoa had become. A Manus. A being that surpassed the bounds of logic and operated on a completely different level to normal beings. They were like supercomputers but more. But if she was correct, since when did Felix have a Manus and why did no one know about it? Well, at least she didn't know about it. It was possible that someone like Rimuru may know about his Manus, something that stung Hinata. If Felix always had a Manus, that would explain how he grew so powerful in such a short period of time. She had been in the Cardinal world for close to a decade before she went back in time, and she was only an incomplete saint back then. And she had Usurper, which greatly accelerated her progress. Felix hadn't been in this world for even half that, and yet he was still far stronger than her. Amanas would explain everything. But that led her back to her original question, just how and when did Felix get Amanas? She had no idea how one could manifest Amanas. Granoa was the collective negative emotions of Chloe from multiple loops. When she named her Granoa, that gave the ego the final push to become fully sentient, and then later on, with Rimuru's help, Granoa completed its evolution. She did not think Felix had a mass of negative emotions to call upon, so just how did he do it? That was just something she would have to ask Felix when she woke up, she supposed. She continued wandering in her thoughts for an incalculable number of time. She didn't think that her evolution would take very long, but when one is alone in darkness, time tends to lose all meaning. Her thoughts wandered to Felix and what he thought of her. She knew it was dumb to think about, but emotions weren't something she was used to even after so long. She knew he saw her as a student and perhaps even a friend. She also knew he found her attractive, as he had said so himself while looking over her body, but one thing she knew was that Felix preferred bustier women. It was easy to tell when every one of his lovers had fairly large chests. Lalatina had even changed herself to have larger breasts due to Felix. Back when she had faced Lalatina before she was incarnated and named, Lalatina was as flat as a board with not much curves. Now she was an incredibly curvy and seductive woman, all for Felix. Would Felix like her more if she had a larger chest? She had never felt lacking when it came to her body. She knew she was gorgeous, her evolutions only increasing her beauty, but for the first time she was a bit upset that she couldn't grow larger breasts. I yawned as I took a look around the room. I felt a weight on my chest and looked down to see Lalatina gazing up at me with loving doe eyes. "Good morning, Lalatina." Lalatina's lips curved upwards. "Good morning, Master." Lalatina moved slightly, causing her nipples to scrape against my chest pleasantly. Just the sight of a nude Lalatina alone was enough to get me horny, something that Lalatina felt going by the seductive grin on her face. "Did you wish for me to serve you, Master? I was a demon lord, an enemy of humanity. Why shouldn't I indulge in some sinning? In fact, it's natural that I indulge in the more pleasurable aspects of life more than others," and so I nodded. "Yes, please do so." "Hee hee." Lalatina giggled out. "Of course." Lalatina slowly lowered herself, her breasts still rubbing against my chest as she went lower and lower, until eventually my hard cock was resting over her face. Lalatina inhaled deeply. She gave the side of my shaft a little kiss before getting to work. I really loved my life. "Raiden." I called out to the open space. Moments later, my draconic maid appeared next to me, completely outfitted in her maid outfit. Raiden bowed. "I am ready to leave whenever you wish, Master. I have already ordered the others to maintain the palace in my absence." I smiled. "Great, let's leave now, then. If Raiden trusted her subordinates enough to maintain this place in her absence, then I'd trust her judgment." Raiden wasn't the type to accept anything other than perfection, so the maids under her must be qualified. I was honestly pretty excited to fight Milim. I want to test my newly ascended power after gaining the dragon factors against one of the only people I can say that I can confidently go all out on. I'm fairly certain I haven't ever seen her truly let loose even in all of our spars. Veldora had once offhandedly mentioned that Milim possessed more energy than he himself did in her base state. I definitely haven't sensed that amount of energy from her, so she likely sealed it within herself so she never loses control again like she did when she faced Guy so long ago, resulting in a portion of this world becoming practically uninhabitable. Honestly, the fact that Guy could last against Milim for 7 days and 7 nights is a testament to his power and skill. Guy is just built different. He isn't the first demon lord for nothing. Milim is a certified monster. She may act extremely childishly, but her power is the real deal. She would completely destroy Veldora and perhaps even Velzard in a fight, though I'm not too sure about the latter since I don't have a clear reading of Velzard's power. "Why don't we fly there? It's been a little while since I've rode on you." A giddy smile appeared on Raiden's face. It seems she enjoyed giving me rides just as much as I enjoyed riding her. Who doesn't want to ride a dragon? After all, dragons are badass. Such is a fact of the world. "Of course, Master." I nodded. "Let's head out then so you can have some room to take off." Raiden nodded and we made our way out of the palace and towards some open ground. As we walked out, one of the maids under Raiden called out. She was another dark elf that I had named. I think I named her Elenize. She was even sending Raiden a thumbs up. "Have fun on your date, Lady Raiden." Raiden's lips twitched. "Get back to work, Elenize." "Ha. So, I did get the name right. With my evolutions my mental facilities also improved. I needed to have a strong enough mind to survive for a long time. At this point my memories are stored in my soul instead of my mind so I won't really ever lose any memories unless I willingly discard them." Raiden sighed. "I am sorry about that, Master. That girl can be a bit too much of an airhead. It's fine. It's good to have some interesting subordinates under you. It makes the job more fun." Raiden nodded. After that there were no more interruptions, and soon enough we were at the Pegasus stables which had a designated takeoff and landing areas. "Lord Felix." One of the Magin guards called out. "Hello there. I'll just be borrowing one of your takeoff pads." The guard nodded. "Do as you please. This is all yours, after all." The Magin nodded. I smiled. "That is true." I turned to Raiden. "Let's go." Once we were on the pad, I gave Raiden some distance to transform. I watched, my eyes alight with fascination, as Raiden shed her human facade and revealed her true draconic form. Her azure blue scales shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting a myriad of dazzling hues. Each scale was perfectly interlocked, creating an impenetrable armor that gleamed with radiance. Her powerful bipedal feet dug into the ground, sending ripples through the earth as her claws sank deep into the soil. With a mighty roar that echoed to the heavens, Raiden threw back her head, her eyes blazing with power. Even her 2 horns that extended from the back of her head seemed to be glimmering in power. The sound reverberated through the air, a symphony of pure dominance and freedom echoed throughout the surroundings. Her wings, vast and majestic, unfurled with a fluid grace, casting a shadow that covered the ground beneath her. The sheer force of her transformation was palpable, the air charged with an electric energy that crackled and sparked around her. In that moment, Raiden was a creature of legend, a living embodiment of awe and might, her very presence commanding respect and wonder. And all that was mine. Unbelievable. I heard Imagine mutter in the distance. She was larger than even Charybdis in her true form. Dragons grew larger as they grew stronger in this world. Veldora simply manipulated his size so that it didn't become too cumbersome, since size really didn't add much to combat power at the higher levels of this world. It definitely added to your presence, though. Raiden was releasing her dragon's haki in waves, causing all of the Imagine around us to look at her in awe and submission. Raiden's draconic form seriously made her lose a lot of her inhibitions. She starts acting like how a real dragon should act, prideful and all. Size makes one a larger target. The thing with dragons is that only in their true forms can they truly let loose, it's in their nature. I wonder how she would match up against the Dragon Lord Sorcerer's dynasty Sarian has? That dragon has been around for a very long time, but going by size alone Raiden was a bit larger. I noticed that Raiden's tail was wagging slightly, as if she was a pet waiting for praise. I could only sigh fondly. In the end, even in this form Raiden was Raiden. I stepped forward, shrinking space so that I would appear directly on top of Raiden. I lightly stroked the shining scales underneath me, causing Raiden to shiver. "Let's go, it's best if we don't distract everyone too much," I whispered. Raiden nodded, and with another deafening roar she launched off the pad and into the sky, though she was careful to not cause a sonic explosion since that would cause some damage to the surroundings. I sighed in contentment as Raiden's form broke through the clouds, allowing me to gaze at my territory from far above. "It really looks so small from up here," I mumbled. Raiden let out a low rumble of agreement. She could still speak in this form, but it seems she was rather in tune with her draconic instincts. Perhaps I should get her to shed her mortal coil more often if being in a humanoid form is restricting her instincts that much. I don't think repressing her true self is really good for Raiden. Even if she is my mate and is loyal to me, in the end she is still a dragon, and dragons are known for their pride. Hell, when I was visiting Gaia I met one such prideful dragon. It's simply in their nature as the domineering creatures that they are. I laid on my back as Raiden flew us towards Milim's territory at a brisk pace. Even if Raiden wasn't flying at max speed, it shouldn't take too long to arrive at Milim's territory since we are kind of neighbors. Raiden and I flew towards Milim's former palace. She had gotten a new one made with Rimaru's help, and the construction for it had been recently finished. I patted Raiden's scales, signaling for her to slow down. Once she did so, I lightly hopped off her back and extended my own wings behind me. "It's probably best if you assume your humanoid form. We're probably causing a pretty big scene right now. In fact, I'm surprised that no one has come to stop us." A massive dragon flying in was bound to get attention, but I knew Milim would be fine with it. Raiden nodded and began shrinking. Her draconic features slowly vanished as her form shrunk. Before long she was back to how I knew her, though she did have her draconic wings extended behind her, allowing her to float in place with minimal effort. Raiden lightly stretched as she sighed. "That was an enjoyable trip, Master." I nodded. "Yeah, I had fun. I'll get you some territory of your own within my territory where you can fly around as you please. It seems you enjoy being in your true form quite a bit." Raiden smiled. "Thank you, Master. I will not reject your gift." I nodded. "Follow me, I sense Milim." Raiden nodded, and so I flew towards Milim's new palace at a brisk pace. I could sense Midrayi at the central temple. His gaze was already focused on our direction as he spoke to one of the dragonet under him. It seems he is preparing to come visit us. He probably held off anyone who wanted to come to confront us since he likely sensed Raiden. I could also sense Frey next to Milim, so Milim was probably in the middle of some work, but she'd probably thank me for the interruption. Milim and work don't go well together. I felt Midrayi take off towards me. He'd catch up in no time at the pace I was going. "Sir Midrayi is on his way here, Master." I nodded. "Yeah, he is." A couple of moments later, Midrayi appeared before us, his hands tucked behind his back. He lightly bowed to me. "Lord Felix, it is a surprise to see you here." His gaze then shifted to Raiden as his lips curled upwards. "It is good to see you again, Raiden." Raiden smiled. "It is nice to see you again as well, Sir Midrayi," she said with genuine admiration in her tone. She really looked up to Midrayi, huh? Well, not that I can blame her. Everyone needs a mentor figure in their lives. I'm glad that Raiden found hers. The training Midrayi had put her through has already improved Raiden's energy reserves. I imagine her technique has also vastly improved, since technique is something Midrayi specializes in. "Bwaha, no need for the sir. How many times must I tell you so?" Raiden shook her head. "It is respectful." Midrayi sighed. "I can tell I will not be able to win against you concerning this." I looked on in amusement. "It seems you two are rather close." Raiden nodded. "I appreciate Sir Midrayi's teachings immensely." Raiden is a good student who is eager to learn more, my favorite type of student. Midrei said with a smile. Unlike Hermes, damn brat. He whispered to the side before focusing back on me. I am sure she will go far under your care, Lord Felix. You don't need to tell me, I already know how amazing she is. She'll definitely go far. I had no doubt that in time, Raiden would get an ultimate skill of her own, and to the majority of this world, acquiring an ultimate skill was the very peak one could reach, and I could even agree with that sentiment. A hint of red appeared on Raiden's cheeks at my words as she fidgeted with her hands. How cute, she was embarrassed at the praise. As for why I'm here, I wanted to fight with Milim. Midrei nodded in understanding. I can sense that your nature has changed, and my instincts have told me that you have become far stronger. I can tell that I have no hope of even rustling your clothing should we battle. Fighting someone you can go all out is needed to truly understand one's own power. Midrei said with an approving smile. I am capable of perfectly controlling your power, master. Othina said in a pouty tone. I know, even if you transcribe my power into data and transfer that information to me, it would still be different from actually feeling and using my power, I suppose I can see your point. Othinus relented. I'm sure Milim is glad to have such a reliable subordinate. I still have a long way to go to reach Lady Milim's level, but it seems you are well on your way there, Lord Felix. The amount of progress you have made in such a short period of time is tremendous. It seems that you are a man built to become a legend, just like Lady Milim. Midrei said with genuine admiration. Raiden was smiling proudly for some reason, though I knew the truth. I knew that without Odin, or rather Othinus as she was now, I wouldn't be where I am now. I am your power, master, so think of it as if you helped yourself. No need to console me, Othinus. I know why I'm so strong very well, but that doesn't mean I won't take pride in my strength, nor does that mean I won't take advantage of the abilities you provide. I know well enough that you are the one that has helped me become so powerful, but that doesn't mean that this power isn't mine. Just because Odin and Othinus helped me didn't mean that I didn't deserve my power. The only one who has the right to say if I deserve my power or not is me, no one else. I was the one to fight off the wills of all the souls that were consumed in my harvest festival. I'm the one who awakened Odin in the first place. I'm the one who practically fought for my life in the demon realm. If I didn't use my power to take every single advantage I could get due to a misplaced sense of pride, then I'd just be an idiot. My lips curled upwards. Thanks Midrei, but don't sell yourself short. You're a legend yourself and can mop the floor against many awakened beings. When I first met Midrei, I genuinely admired the guy, and I still do. He was a man of sheer will and dedication. He had been training for over 2,000 years, a period of time I couldn't even imagine living, let alone dedicating to a single goal. Hearing that man say that to me was a pretty interesting experience. Oh, thank you for the compliment, Lord Felix, but my training is far from over. Midrei boasted. He was a man who could fight at the ultimate level, and he says his training is far from over. Midrei is a really special guy. I'm sure Lady Milim must be quite happy right now. I am sure she has sensed your arrival just as I had. Lady Frey had been encouraging her to work. Midrei said with a straight face. I raised a brow. Encouraging her, huh? Midrei nodded. Yes. Then let's go save her from her encouragement. Midrei nodded. I will guide you. I am quite interested in witnessing this spar between you and Lady Milim myself, if that is all right. I tilted my head. Sure, I don't mind. I was already going to have Raiden watch to broaden her horizons, adding Midrei in won't hurt. He may even be able to explain what exactly is happening in the fight since Raiden isn't capable of understanding the laws of the world to the level Milim and I are, so many abilities we use she just won't be able to understand. I'll have to protect the two of them in some barriers, but that shouldn't be an issue. Midrei's lips curled up in an excited grin. Excellent. Please follow me then. Both Raiden and I flew a couple of feet behind Midrei as we flew to Milim's new palace. As I admired the palace, all I could think was that the orcs under Rimuru really did some good work. The people who did construction in my territory had learned from the orcs, but they were mostly working on expanding the capital city of Azeroth. Before I took over, there was no city above land, so I had to do some terraforming to make it possible to have a city above ground. Though I think it all paid off, now I have a beautiful city to look at from outside my palace windows, and we have more room for people to live in. After a few moments of high-speed flying, we touched down on the ground in front of Milim's new palace. I couldn't sense Gaia, maybe Milim sent Gaia to the dungeon to train a bit more then. One of the dragonets holding a spear greeted Midrei. Sir Midrei, I was not expecting you. I heard you were teaching a lesson at the church. Midrei nodded. I was, but I decided to escort our guests to Lady Milim. The dragonet looked at me and bowed. Welcome, Lord Felix. He then looked to Raiden, and his eyes widened. This power. How tremendous. Raiden's eyes widened at hearing the dragonet. I appreciate the praise. She thanked him with grace. Raiden wasn't suppressing her power completely, so some of her aura was sensed by the dragonet, and that meager amount of aura was enough to shock the dragonet. The dragonet smiled. It has been a long time since I have sensed a dragon magic of your power appear. Raiden tilted her head. But I am a dragon? I suppose we all are. The guard shook his head. I apologize, I got distracted. You are free to go, Sir Midrayi. Midrayi nodded. Thank you, Gun. It is pretty abnormal for dragons to take on a humanoid form. In fact, the only reason I think Raiden was able to write after I named her was due to my vision of Raiden when I named her. I was thinking of Raiden Shogun, so Raiden the dragon was somehow influenced by my wish and assumed a humanoid form right off the bat, though I doubt she's the first to do so. The dragonets are a race that was formed due to dragons breeding with humans, after all. I don't think that the dragons bred with humans in their massive draconic form. For some reason, I don't think that would end up turning out well. The picture of a massive dragon mating with a tiny human was honestly pretty off-putting. The most likely possibility was that they were able to take on a humanoid form to breed. Raiden just always assumes her humanoid form unless she is going all out in combat, well, that or giving me a ride. We walked through the palace halls, various dragonet guards were stationed all around. It seems like Frey or Midrayi, probably Frey, are taking everything super seriously. Before, Milim didn't really need any guards, she was Milim fucking Nava. Why would she need protection? But having guards was more of a status thing for demon lords. All of the demon lords, bar Ramaries, were vastly stronger than their guards, but it would look bad if a demon lord had to deal with some no-name fodder themselves. The fodder should be taken care of by a demon lord's subordinates. Things have changed quite a bit around here. I voiced out. Midrayi nodded. Lady Frey has caused quite a bit of change in these lands. Lady Milim is even doing actual work now, a sight I didn't think I would ever see in my entire lifetime. My lips curled up. I couldn't believe it at first either. Milim doing work, the same Milim that would come to me for candy? Who knew? Milim had character development. Though I guess she was always like that. Midrayi smiled. She may not show it, but she does care for her worshippers. Lady Frey pointed out that we would thrive more if she took responsibility. Even if Lady Milim complains, in the end, she does it for us. It is why so many of us are so loyal to her. Lady Milim is a goddess-given form. Midrayi stated with dreamy eyes. I nodded. I could see their point of view. Milim was just a good person, she cared for those under her even if she didn't show it, and she was very empathetic. Yeah, Milim is a kind woman. At least to those she cares for. It didn't take us long to reach Milim's office. I could sense both Milim and Frey within. Here we are, announced Midrayi. He took a step forward and knocked on the door. It is Midrayi, Lady Milim, I have brought some guests. Finally, I've been waiting for so long. Milim whined through the door. Taking that as the approval to enter, Midrayi opened the door. I was met with the sight of an exasperated Frey and an excited Milim. Milim jumped up off her seat and ran up to me. She clung onto me for dear life. Finally. You're here to save me, aren't you, Felix? Frey is making me do so much work. It's not fair. Milim whined into my chest. I patted her head. There, I'm sure it's not too bad. I know I'm one to be talking since I gave all my work to Arcuaid, but hypocrisy is my middle name. Frey just looked on in amusement and resignation. Fine, you can have a break, Milim. Frey sighed out in fake reluctance. Yay. Milim cheered. Let's go hang out, bestie. Actually, that's why I'm here. I wanted to have a serious spar with you. I got a bit more powerful recently and you are a good target to test my power out on. Milim let go of me and examined me. I could feel her Milim eye scan me, which I did not reject. Milim's eyes widened. Whoa. You really did get a lot stronger. Sure, a fight sounds fun right about now. Milim agreed. Frey tilted her head. Did Felix get stronger? I don't sense anything different. Haha, well, that's because you haven't trained enough, Frey. Milim laughed out. Frey's lips twitched. I suppose if I did not have to watch you to make you work, then I would have more time for training, would I not? Milim turned her head to the side and began making her best attempt at whistling. Of course she failed. Frey sighed. I suppose I knew what I had signed up for. Milim turned back to Frey. I guess I can start training you. Maybe Midrayi can help. Midrayi nodded. I will do as you command, Lady Milim. Milim grinned. Great, you're the best, Midrayi. You honor me, Lady Milim. Responded Midrayi. Hee, no problem. Milim said, her chest puffed out. She then looked at me, excitement visible in her eyes. Now, let's fight. It's been a long time since we've fought. I rolled my eyes. It hasn't been that long. In this fight, I want you to go all out, Milim. I want a chance to see how much power you have lying within you. An excited grin crept up onto my face. I'm sure this fight of ours will be one of the greatest I've ever taken part in. Milim looked at me worryingly. I'm pretty sure if we both really go all out, Felix, even if we place barriers up, the world may still suffer under our power. I waved her off. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. If I may, how exactly will you take care of the fallout? The last time Milim truly went all out to my knowledge, a portion of the world became uninhabitable. Frey asked worryingly. If you're that worried, I'll explain it to you. Of course I plan to give a slightly altered explanation. I didn't want many people to know about my ability to travel dimensions. Chapter 147, Against Milim Nava Part 1. If you're that worried, I'll explain it to you. Of course, I plan to give a slightly altered explanation. I didn't want many people to know about my ability to travel dimensions. I know that I didn't really owe Frey anything. Milim would take me at my word, but it wouldn't hurt to slightly explain things to Frey. Milim trusted her, so she had some of my trust as well. Frey nodded. Thank you, Felix. I appreciate your willingness to share your secrets. I do not wish for a fight between you two to bring us the attention of the other demon lords. Such a thing may be troublesome. Bahaha. No need to worry about that, Frey. I can easily mop the floor with them. Boasted Milim. It's fine, Milim, I don't mind. I'm going to need both you and Midrayi to keep everything a secret though. I said to Frey. Frey nodded. I agree. I will not betray Lady Milim's trust. Midrayi stated firmly. I believed Midrayi, he had no reason to lie, and it wasn't in his nature. Frey, I was less certain about, but I was willing to trust her on this. Milim trusted her, and Milim was a very good judge of character. I nodded. Good. Basically, I am able to create dimensions with my spatial abilities. With this, I can create a brand new dimension for Milim and me to fight in so that the damage we cause is isolated from this world. The ability to create dimensions was honestly not that far-fetched. With enough data, Rimuru could likely do something similar with Uriel, Lord of Vows. Hell, Infinity Prison was practically an entirely different dimension of its own, so my little white lie wasn't that unbelievable. The area the Walpurgis was in was another dimension. I don't know if it was one guy created or one guy managed to find and connect to. In fact, I could probably create a dimension just for this fight, but I'd rather just take us to an empty dimension that already exists out there somewhere. Something like that seems more secure. That is a wise decision, Master. With my assistance, it should theoretically be possible to create a dimension powerful enough to contain both yours and Milim's power. However, it is best to play it safe in this scenario. I will continue to gather data to create a more firm dimension with Brahma, Lord of Creation. Thanks, Othinus. It is my pleasure. Othinus is always so hardworking, truly the ideal partner to cover my ass since I'm lazy as hell. Milim looked at me oddly as she quickly caught on to the fact that I was telling a partial truth. Milim knew about my ability to hop dimensions. I literally did so in front of her when we fought the Chaos Dragon, and I also told her about it in the past. Truly? Exclaimed Frey. I did not think your spatial capabilities extended so far. She mumbled. Hey, she really only knows the tip of the iceberg. Spatial manipulation is the best. I don't care that time is technically the superior attribute. Though, if you think about it, the two of them are different sides of the same coin. I see. That is quite surprising to hear, but I suppose it is expected of Lady Milim's best friend. Said Midrayi. Well, that was easier than I thought. Well, if that's all, then let's go to this new dimension. I voiced out. Midrayi said he wanted to watch, and Raiden will also be following. May I watch as well? Perhaps seeing this fight will allow me to realize new things. Asked Frey. I don't mind. Are you fine with that, Milim? Milim nodded. That's fine, Frey. I'll create a barrier around them so that they are protected from the effects of our battle. Milim nodded. Before we leave, allow me to call Ark back so he can continue with all this work. Said Frey. Ah, right, I was wondering where he was at. He was taking care of some errands for Milim. Frey responded. I nodded. I felt Frey send out a thought communication, and a minute later, Ark appeared. He bowed to Milim. I have returned, Lady Milim. He then bowed to me. Lord Felix. He said with reverence in his tone. Hello, Ark. I remember asking why he seemed so reverent of me. He said the master of his mistress deserved at least that much. Despite serving Milim, Arcuaid was still his primordial, that obedience towards her had been ingrained into him. Demons and their loyalty, man. Now that he's here, let's go. Everyone nodded. See you later, Ark. Said Milim. Goodbye, Lady Milim. I will begin sorting through all the various plans and requests the Dragon Faithful have sent you. Ark said. Milim smiled happily. You're really a saint, Ark. That's ironic to say to a demon of all races. I snapped my fingers, creating a portal that led to an empty dimension. I purposefully chose one that had no life on it since I didn't want to disturb the ecosystem of any planet if I didn't have to. Frey stared at the portal in astonishment. Is that? I nodded to Frey. It is. That is the gate to another dimension. Midrei casually walked past me and stepped through the portal. I could see him take a deep breath as he laughed. Come on. Let's go, Frey. Milim said as she dragged Frey along. I looked at Raiden. Let's go. Raiden nodded and walked forward with me. We both stepped through the portal, entering a new dimension entirely. Raiden was looking around in curiosity. She went with me to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, but stepping foot in another dimension is still a pretty interesting thing, especially since this one was so devoid of life. The area all around us was just dirt and rocks. Bacteria and the like still lived, but I didn't really care for those. Other than that, there were no real animals in this world, not even bugs, just some plants that provided enough oxygen for the non-spiritual life forms. This was a world on the verge of death. In fact, it was already half a step there, which is why I chose this world as our battleground. Milim looked around in curiosity. This is different from before. Frey's head snapped to Milim. You've been to one of these dimensions? Milim's eyes widened. Oops. Was that supposed to be a secret, Felix? I shook my head. No, that's fine. I looked at Frey. When dealing with the Chaos Dragon, I transported Milim, the Chaos Dragon, and I to another dimension I created previously to restrict the damage to as little as possible. I said, keeping the white lie I told earlier. Frey nodded in understanding. I see. Midrei was grinding his feet into the dirt. This planet feels dead. Alright, Midrei was very in tune with nature. He used the energy the planet naturally gave off and channeled it through him for some of his attacks, so it makes sense that he would be able to feel the dying state of this planet. Of course, I couldn't give off that this wasn't a dimension I had created. This is a dimension I created, so the Earth under us isn't truly alive like the Earth in the Cardinal world is. Midrei nodded. I see. I suppose that makes sense. There are ley lines running all throughout the Cardinal world, which is basically the world's lifeblood. This world has none of that. The magicules in the air are practically non-existent as well due to this. Luckily, I have Magicule Breeder Reactor, as does Milim. This world was also incredibly small, about the size of a small kingdom in its entirety, so it was still somewhat believable that I could create something like this. Milim's Magicule Breeder Reactor needs magicules from the air to breed with, right? That is correct. My previous incarnation had modified your Magicule Breeder Reactor to function solely off your own magicules. Milim Nava, however, will still need to rely on the magicules in the atmosphere to breed with her own. Well, that would put a bit of a damper on our fight. It would be a shame if she ran out of magicules mid-fight. Can you modify Milim's Magicule Breeder Reactor through our soul corridor? That is possible if I have her consent. However, do you wish to empower Milim Nava? Yeah, that's fine with me. I doubt Milim will ever become an enemy, so it isn't a big deal. I do not believe this is a wise decision, but very well. Great, thanks, Thenis, Milim Nava. Milim looked around in wonder at the new world before her, and she knew this was an entirely different world rather than a dimension that Felix created. For one, Felix had told her about his ability to visit other worlds. She still had to get him to take her to a new world. Not to mention Frey and even Midrei's abilities were lacking when compared to her. They could not sense that they had moved to an entirely different space-time axis. They were no longer on the Cardinal world. She guessed that Felix wanted to keep his ability to travel to other worlds a secret, something she could only say was a good idea. If Guy found out, he would nag Felix to death about taking him to another world. He would probably want to see if other worlds had any other people with interesting abilities. She was also curious about that, but she could wait until Felix took her on a trip. Then, there was the fact that his power had increased drastically. Her Milim didn't lie, and she knew what she felt. His total reserves were approaching her own level when she was not suppressing her power. If she wanted to give Felix a good fight, then she would truly have to let loose, something she hadn't done for 2,000 years. She wouldn't deny that part of her felt nervous about letting her power run loose. Her strength was as wondrous as it was monstrous. She still remembered the screams of terror she heard when she rampaged around due to Gaia's death. She didn't want to go through something like that again. But she trusted Felix, and his explanation was valid. They were in an entirely different world, one devoid of any true life. How would she kill anyone by mistake if there was no one to kill? All of a sudden, she felt a connection reach out through the soul corridor that she and Felix shared. Milim Nava, I am Felix's partner. Do you give me permission to modify your skills? Who are you? She heard the voice audibly sigh somehow. I am Othinus, the partner of Felix. She looked at Felix. Bestie? Felix nodded. Whatever she's saying is true. She nodded. Sure then, if you're Felix's friend, then I trust you. Thank you. She felt the mysterious being begin to change one of her most prized skills, Magicule Breeder Reactor. She felt her lips curl upwards as she felt the change. Felix really did spoil her. Thanks, Felix. And thanks, mysterious partner of Felix's. I am simply doing as my master commands. Hey, no problem. We won't be able to have a fun fight if one of your greatest assets isn't as effective. She no longer needed Magicules from the atmosphere to breed with her own for Magicule Breeder Reactor to function. Instead, now her own Magicules would breed with each other to create more Magicules, which cut off her reliance on the Magicules in the atmosphere. Normally, that wouldn't be an issue since the atmosphere of the Cardinal world is filled with Magicules, but in this world where the Magicules were sorely lacking, this modification helped her out greatly. I smiled as the transformation of Millim's Magicule Breeder Reactor was completed. Thanks Othinus. It is no problem. Why don't the three of you group up to the side? Then I'll place some barriers around you three. All three of our spectators nodded. Once they were far enough away, I snapped my fingers, placing tens of barriers around them. Some were meant to stop fighting spirit from penetrating, others to stop magic from bypassing the barrier. I even placed a multi-dimensional barrier at the end. However, if one of us used Stardust and it was headed in their direction, no barriers would be able to stop that, so we would have to be careful. Make sure not to aim any of your really strong moves in their direction. I said to Millim. I still remember how my Stardust power Sero tore through the barrier that Velzard was maintaining. Millim nodded. Got it. Millim's lips curled into a smirk. Fight now? She asked with some excitement. I nodded, a matching grin on my face. Fight now. Let's go then, Felix. The moment she finished speaking she pulled back for a moment before vanishing as she flew as fast as she could towards me. Her speed left a sonic explosion in her wake as she coated her fist in fighting spirit, causing it to glow brightly with power. She was almost like a meteor heading straight towards my face, yet I didn't even bother dodging. There was no need. I was confident that infinity would stop her. Even if she had coated her fist in pure spiritrons, she wouldn't be able to reach me now. Just like I expected, Millim began to slow down the closer she got to me until her fist completely stopped some distance from my face. Seeing Millim's annoyed expression caused me to let out a chuckle. PFFT, you didn't think that would work this time, did you? How many times have you done the same thing? TSK. Millim pulled back her fist and pouted. I had to at least try. Stop being so boring. I rolled my eyes. Fine. I didn't disable infinity but I did decrease the range on it drastically so that Millim's fist would need to be nanometers away from my body for infinity to activate. That way I could at least give her the illusion of almost hitting me. Yippee. Millim pumped up her fist. Then, without a second to waste, she coated her fist in pure, rampant fighting spirit. Fighting spirit so strong it began to distort space itself around her. I let go of the control I held over my own fighting spirit and allowed it to blaze out of me, destroying the land beneath me as well as causing space to rupture. This world was weaker than the Cardinal world since there weren't any divine artifacts around to keep this world stable, so it really wasn't difficult at all to distort this world. In fact, Millim and I would have to be careful to not destroy this entire dimension by accident. If we stopped restraining our power, this very dimension would shatter. Actually, I should probably put up a few before we collapse the entire planet. I wouldn't want to leave Frey and the rest floating off into space. Even if they could survive it, it was just bad manners. I placed 3 barriers, one over the entirety of this small kingdom-sized planet. One was meant to boost the planet's durability. And another around the planet itself meant to contain our energies so the dimension didn't suffer under our power. Millim looked at the barriers with curiosity in her eyes before her eyes lit up in realization. Ah, good thinking, Felix. I nodded in thanks as I coated my arms in my Demon Lord's hockey, creating a massive wave of dark aura around them as I clapped. The moment my 2 hands collided, a massive burst of pure destruction shot toward Millim. Her body blurred as she shot to the left, avoiding my attack entirely as she sped up in a semicircle to get behind me. As she moved, I could tell she was getting more comfortable with using more of her strength. The energy coursing through her became so massive that it was almost impossible to tell what exactly the energy in her body was doing. It was almost like staring directly at the sun, and with her blinding energy, it would be difficult to see if Millim was charging up an attack inside of her body. Once she thought she had finished getting used to releasing more power, she suddenly vanished as she shot towards me. My body reacted instantly as I reached down to my stomach, catching her fist just in time to stop her. Yet, even then, I winced slightly as I felt her fighting spirit raging inside of me, attempting to destroy my body. But all it took was some focus on my part to push her fighting spirit back with my own power and durability. I didn't use anti-skill to seal off her power since my goal for this fight was to let loose, to see what I was really capable of. If I just sealed off some of Milim's power, I would not accomplish my objective. I'll save anti-skill as a trump card for this fight and in general. Not to mention anti-skill is far from absolute, chances were Milim could brute force her way through it. Anti-skill is best used as a last resort rather than a main hand. Surprise is key with it, and even then, it isn't all that good against high-level attacks. If one was relatively smart and strong, they would be able to see its flaws, and then anti-skill would become useless. I pressed down on her fist, attempting to crush her hand, but before I could make any significant progress, Milim's eyes let out a sparkle as she opened her mouth, releasing some energy she had been secretly gathering. My eyes widened as the beam approached me at speeds approaching that of light, but fortunately for me, my recently upgraded perception speed allowed me to react in time. A barrier appeared between the beam of magicules Milim released and my face, completely negating Milim's attack, but while I was distracted, Milim managed to escape my grasp. She had used massive amounts of energy coursing through her body to disguise the fact that she was gathering energy in her mouth. It was extremely difficult to tell where and when she was gathering energy when she just had too much energy to accurately sense the movement of. We weren't anywhere near serious. Milim hadn't even taken on her combat form, yet she had already surprised me, as expected of her. Milim quickly hit me with a barrage of punches, drawing in my full focus. Each of our strikes was a blur of motion, unseen to the naked eye. For all my physical power and durability, the impact of her blows still resonated through my arms as her fighting spirit and dragon ki rampaged around us, my own practically coming to life to counteract it. I dodged, blocked, and counterattacked with every ounce of skill I possessed. Milim Nava was no brute, the amount of skill she possessed when it came to combat was staggering. The sheer force of her attacks sent shockwaves cascading throughout the land. Milim might as well have had the tremor fruit with the shockwaves her blows were causing. Even space itself was uprooted and shattered. Though I gave just as much as I got, my own punches caused Milim to wince in pain as the shockwaves from it shook her very body as space distorted under my blows. The ground beneath us ordinarily would have shattered, but the barrier I placed earlier protected the planet from most of the unintended side effects of our battle. Milim's eyes burned with determination, a fierce grin plastered on her face. She was enjoying this, reveling in the thrill of combat. I could feel a similar grin on my own face. Milim and I were having fun testing each other, prodding each other for weaknesses before we truly let loose. Sensing an opportunity, I summoned forth my own energy from deep within. I pivoted on my heel, narrowly avoiding a devastating punch aimed at my head. Using the momentum, I lashed out with a swift kick to her side. She blocked it effortlessly, but it gave me the split second I needed to create some distance. Oh, that was fun, Felix. Milim laughed out with her hands on her hips proudly. Her clothing was the only thing about her that was damaged whatsoever. Milim was durable as hell. I smiled. Yeah, it was. It's been a while since I've felt pressured in pure martial arts. I may not train my ass off when it came to martial arts anymore, but I've still kept up on my training, just not at the same intensity as I trained at the start of my tenure in the Cardinal world, but I could copy and analyze the moves of those who are masters in their own right. With some practice I could merge those copied moves into my own martial style, so I had the combined experience of multiple martial masters, and yet Milim was still keeping up if not slightly pressuring me. She may have acted childish, but when it came to combat, she was unmatched. Milim nodded and resumed her stance. It seems she wasn't quite done playing around. Milim began sharpening her fighting spirit until it began taking on the shape of a blade. She was using one of the moves of the martial arts style she created, Drago Fist. She lunged at me again, leaving a sonic explosion in her wake as she came at me at tens of times the speed of sound. Her movements were practically a dance. I weaved left and right, joining Milim in her dance as we danced to the wondrous tune of death and destruction together. I traced the lines of future attack prediction, as Amanus, Othina's future attack prediction had become far more accurate and was even capable of partially predicting and calculating Milim's movements, making this fight much easier on me. I could sometimes tell if Milim's attacks were feints, as well as read their trajectory, which was a godsend in this type of battle. With a swift sidestep I managed to pierce through Milim's guard and land a solid punch to Milim's midsection. My fighting spirit rampaged within Milim's body as she grunted in pain, fighting off my fighting spirit with her own. Not bad, Felix, why don't we get a little more serious? Milim said with a confident smirk on her face. I couldn't agree more. I said with excitement. I allowed Milim to enter her combat state. I went to Milim for a good fight. I didn't want to interrupt her shonen power-up this time. Milim's energy flared, Her hair began waving behind her as a surge of apocalyptic power began radiating from her. The very planet began to shake even with the barrier I had placed earlier. I grit my teeth as I bore the brunt of Milim's power. This was just going to be the beginning. I knew Milim had more in store for me. I smiled. This is where the fun begins. I mumbled, quoting a certain sky guy in a galaxy far, far away. I couldn't afford to hold back. Oh, Thinus, you said you had developed a combat mode for me based on Milim's own? Correct. Did you wish to don this new combat mode? Yeah, I need all the power I can get. I felt Othinus' agreement as I felt my own power begin to radiate around me. The intensity was far greater than anything I had ever released before. Pitch black armor began taking shape around me as more and more of my energy was poured into it. Milim's own transformation was complete. She was just looking at me with curiosity in her eyes. Her combat mode was actually her true form. She had purplish armor that glimmered with unseen power, a pair of draconic wings extending out of her back as well as a single red horn. This was the form in which she let her draconic heritage out of the cage she always kept it in out of fear of breaking the cardboard world around us. The armor that formed around Milim was nigh impenetrable and it conducted Milim's own power extremely well. I looked down at my arm which now had a bracer on it made of the same material as the rest of my armor. The material itself felt fairly familiar. I could instantly tell that it was at the level of god-grade equipment. I was able to recreate the exoskeleton of the insectors from analyzing Zegan. Your armor is made of a superior material than Zegan's, high hurricane, and is extremely resistant to practically all forms of attack due to modification I made. Huh, I didn't even think of that.